Okay, I think everything is set up. There we go. All right, we're going to be getting started soon here. Thank you for your patience while I get spooled up here. I have tried to set up a couple of new things for the stream. Let's just see if they're working okay. I have a chat overlay showing up at some point. And some new graphics as well. Just getting myself organized since it's been a slightly busy past couple of weeks. Busy but good. Let me just make sure I have everything set up and I can see everybody. And I'll be right with you. Weird that I don't actually have this in OBS anymore. Used to be a chat overlay. To kind of give some transparency into what I'm fiddling with here behind the scenes, I've just been experimenting with Streamlabs versus a like a CSS script for showing and formatting things like on-stream chat, or chat overlay rather, and found it to be a little inconsistent. But I think I have what I need over here. And hopefully this will be working. Yes, okay, so I actually have access to chat. Perfect. Okay. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your patience with my little technical hurdles as I'm getting set up this evening. I've come back from a bit of a hiatus, I guess you could say. I had to do a little bit of traveling, which was a lot of fun. Travel is always a little bit exhausting as well, so it took a little bit to kind of gather my energies and catch up on work, and spend a little bit of time rereading some chapters and things like that. So at this point, I think that I'm, decently well rested and eager to kind of jump back into having a conversation with y'all. Oh, I see Kakuzu and Holidays is here in chat already. Hey, how's it going, man? How's everything going on your end? Yeah, just kind of rambling over here, but things here are pretty good for the most part. I just had to put things on pause for a second in order to make time for travel, which I'm sure you can relate to, right? You being on the road, as it were, yourself over the past, how long has it been? How long have you been actually outside of your home country? For me, it was just a few days, 4 or 5 days ish. Always there, you're immortal. Yeah, you're lurking in the shadows like a true shinobi. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate you stopping by and contributing to the discussion and everything. It's very much appreciated. And congratulations, by the way. I know we were talking in Discord before, but thank you. Congratulations for getting that far in your script. 400 pages is a monumental accomplishment. It is a lot of work, as I'm sure you very well know. And sticking with work for that amount of time, taking something from concept through to execution takes a lot of work. So well done, and hopefully the next phase of like finding a voice person and editor goes smoothly as well, because that's its own can of worms, I'm sure. But well done, seriously. Oh, going on. So you've been traveling for almost half a year now. That's intense. Wow, that's a long time to be away from home. That's cool though. I actually talked to my partner a while ago. I had a real back and forth with the travel that we did, because the first day I was out on the road, I was like, oh, this is so cool. We're getting out. We're exploring. You know what we should do? I should wrap up my next project at work, and we should get like a camper, like just a cheap camper van or something. We should just go explore the country. We should live on the road for a while, kind of see the sights and everything. And then like 3 days in, I was like, I love you, but I need to go home now. Like, just... I miss my dog. I miss my my little comforts, my quiet space, stuff like that. So, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I could do 6 months. That would be very, very challenging. It's a lot. So, out of curiosity, after you've gotten home and you've had a chance to recuperate a little bit, if you could choose the next destination that you would go to for a good chunk of time, where would it be? Is there another place in the world that you've not just wanted to go visit, but go visit and have like a long time, like an excuse to stay there for a long time and kind of immerse yourself in living there for a bit. Kakuzu and Holiday says you need a voice actor and someone who does editing, and you can go. Yep. Well, of course, there's a part of me that wants to say, have you considered doing the editing yourself? I say that with a big asterisk because I do not enjoy editing. I know I did a lot of editing for the cap cut for the what's it called, the video on Itachi versus Pain, but I don't actually enjoy it, so it was kind of a big chore. So if you say no, I just don't want to edit the video at all, I would totally understand. But also it does like let you have full creative control, like full like what's the way to describe it, you know, you have everything immediately in front of you and you can adjust it however you like without waiting for somebody else to respond, is what I was trying to say. So there is an advantage to that. As for the voice thing, yeah, I wish I could offer you some kind of advice or whatever, but honestly, like, I've been pretty self-conscious about my own voice, and it always sounds weird. It sounds different when I record it. And I think that is a psychological thing, right? It's like something about hearing your own voice inside your head is always going to sound different because it's resonating in your skull. Like the audio is reflecting off of your bones and your brain essentially. And so it's always going to sound different and weird. But yeah, I don't like the way that my voice sounds recorded very much. So I had to kind of like, I don't know, make peace with that and just work my way through it. My personal feeling was that at the end of it, even if, sorry, I'm going on a little rant here, but hopefully this will be interesting. When I was working on the Itachi versus Pain video, I just decided that I was going to stop watching Naruto videos for like a month or two while I was working on the video entirely. And I decided that, like, even if I wound up saying stupid shit for 3 hours straight and making just a bunch of mistakes, I wanted them to be my own mistakes, and I wanted to be able to like put the video up and say like, this is my if it winds up being a huge pile of crap, this is my huge pile of crap, and I'm proud of it, you know, proud of it for having worked on it for that long. Now obviously, not to be disingenuous, like I referenced other people's theories a couple of times. I think I might have mentioned something that Jay the Great said or that Six said or something like that, so it's not like I was in a total blackout. But for a while I did try to, you know, just like I'd come up with a theory, I'd write it down, and I'd be like, I'm not going to go look up to see if somebody else already solved this problem. I'm going to try to do it on my own. And that went for for my voice as well, right? So as much as I'm not super proud of it, it is kind of cool to be able to look at it and be like, yep, that's me. And I don't know if that would work for you, but it might be worth trying. Depending on how you feel about it, like picking a short section of the video, maybe recording 5 minutes and seeing how it sounds with your own voice. But then of course, you know, if you don't feel like it, if it doesn't work for you, there are other options out there. Might be worth trying to talk to a voice actor or somebody who reads audiobooks. Oh, that could be cool. I thought about doing this for a video I want to make on The Witcher at some point, because I want to do a video comparing some of the text in the Witcher books to the Netflix adaptation, which I kind of don't like at all. But I really like the books, and so I was considering like, well, am I just gonna read the books out loud like I'm doing a I don't know, like I'm a grandpa in front of the fire reading to my grandkids or something? I would feel pretty self-conscious about doing that, so I thought, well, maybe I could hire a voice actor if I could afford it, and then just like give them the opportunity to actually perform the text. So, but of course, you know, money. So that's always a thing. Your Kakuzu Holiday says, I'm bad at editing. No, I don't want to do it. Or you don't want to do it. Yeah, that's fair. I'm not good at it. And also I don't enjoy it. And also it's not a skill that I want to cultivate. Like I've taught myself how to play, like a new instrument, for example. I wanted to learn how to play this little flute that I had, and so I spent, I don't know, like 100 hours trying to learn how to play it, and I got like okay at it, and I'm never going to perform or anything, but it still feels cool to have the skill and to just be able to pull it out if I'm bored. I actually enjoyed the process of doing that, and when I compare that to the process of like going through the timeline in CapCut and just constantly adjusting things, and like, I don't know if you work with CapCut at all, but let me see if I can just pull it up. I don't have it installed anymore, but like it's They're not even showing the timeline. It looks actually better than when I used it previously. But basically, it's just this big, long, ugly timeline with pretty limited controls. And so anytime there was a transition of like one of the images coming on screen and then like going off screen, I would have to like manually pull your energy the video, right? So like for this scrolling up, right, I'd have to manually create a start and an end keyframe and then wait until the transition was done, and then as soon as the next one would come around, like this transition here, I had to manually add in the fade and the fade amount, and then manually add in the coming in of the next like the transition for the next thing. And there was no way that I found to do it in bulk. So for the entire video, for like 1,000 or so images, I just entered them all by hand. And then like 2 or 3 times as I was getting close, I realized, oh shit, I actually kind of don't like the fade, or I don't like the scroll. The scrolling is too fast, or the zoom is too fast, and there's no way to like batch select all of the individual clips. So I just have to go through the entire goddamn timeline over and over again to get it right. That was the worst part of the project by far. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but maybe if I had just like actually purchased, I guess DaVinci might be free, or like what's the Adobe one, Premiere or something like that. If I had just put out the money for a proper editing program and learned it, then it might have been easier. But I didn't want to do that. It wasn't fun. The process of going through and interfacing with the software was just not fun at all. So all this is just to say I totally get it, and I would respect whatever decision you decide is best for your creative vision, right? You say, for a long time, certainly Bolivia or Puerto Rico, totally different countries and kind of have majestic places. Yeah, for sure. I've heard a lot of, I heard a lot about traveling to Puerto Rico. I don't know much about Bolivia, to be honest. I'd be curious if you have anything you can share about what those sites would be that you would want to see, the majestic places. Actually, kind of embarrassed to admit that I don't know much about the history of Bolivia either. I imagine there's some rich history there. It's kind of a shame how just how many countries with extensive history and culture kind of fall by the wayside, at least in my experience. Hopefully it's different from other people. And I'm the minority who just doesn't happen to know a lot about it. So, first order of business tonight, in addition to just chatting, excuse me, in addition to just chatting and catching up on stuff, is we're going to be going back to the, yeah, so let me do a little bit of an intro for people who are just stopping by the stream, or listening after the fact. Oh, actually, one second. I'll type Bolivia Uyuni, okay? Bolivia Uyuni. Oh, I've seen pictures of this before. Or the salt flats, anyway. Wow, that's beautiful. Oh my god. I want to go there too. Yeah. Oh, cool. These costumes are amazing. Wow. Let me go to the page here. The one with a pen, interesting. What are salt flats? Yeah, I've seen footage of the salt flats. They look incredible. Cool. I'm gonna need to check this out more on my own. This looks like a really awesome place. This imagery though, like, there's a couple of places around here, not to this extent, but like I've been to beaches where everything is just flat, and as the tide is going out, you'll see just a little layer of water left on the wet sand. And with the right conditions, it just perfectly reflects the sky. So as you're walking out, it just looks like the sky is overlapping perfectly with the ground, and you're just like walking into this infinite sphere of light. It's so beautiful. I would love to see that. That's really cool. I really hope you get the chance to go. It's probably going to be a while before I do any long-time traveling myself. Short trips I can manage for a little bit, but nothing quite so extensive. That's really cool. Yeah, tell me, feel free to tell me more about what you might like to see there. In the meantime, I'm going to take a little moment to do an intro and a recap of the previous stream. So for folks who are listening back to this or just joining us, we have been discussing the matchup between Kakuzu and Pain, and specifically we have been going and looking at Noodles' video, Brutal Honesty Kakuzu versus Pain. So as I respond to this video, as I react to it, I'm going to be pausing a lot, interrupting a lot, and bringing forth my own commentary in a way that it requires a lot of interruption, a lot of pauses, because I have a lot to say. The risk is always there that I might wind up cutting off something halfway through a sentence or unintentionally misrepresenting something as a result of that constant interruption. So please do go check out the video, either before or after listening to this. I want to make sure that you have a chance to experience the video in its full state without me talking over it. Last time we talked a little bit about Pain's abilities. We talked about the Predapath's absorption, chakra absorption, and whether or not the chakra goes into an infinite swamp. I think we covered that. We talked about, about the chakra rods that Pain can dispense from his hands, how they disrupt chakra, and how they pierced Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Naruto. We talked about, I think we mentioned Naruto saying that Pain can't hurt him when he's in Sage mode and the implications of that statement. And then we left off with a discussion of whether or not Hinata was able to, Pain was able to defeat Hinata based on his skill, or whether it was his speed or something like that. And I think I took the position that it was a combination of both of those things. And we were going to get into the next part, which is about Konohamaru, and hence the title of the stream being, and the thumbnail of the stream being related to Konohamaru. The first thing I want to address is that there's this claim that Konohamaru attacked and destroyed the Naraka Path. Like, people say that Konohamaru killed this Path of Pain, or he took the Path of Pain down, and I want to clear up the misconception around that, because that's not what happened. And I then want to talk about Noodles' claim that Naruto and, I think it's specifically Naruto, but Naruto and Konohamaru were able to take down the Paths of Pain with one-shot attacks. So namely getting one shot with Rasengan. So it's somewhere in here. I won't jump around too much. Let's start off, before we get into actually talking about the video itself, by just doing a review of those scenes from the manga so that we have them fresh in our head. And I can point out where I think some of the confusion is coming from, and then we can kind of go from there. So let's see. Kakuzu and Holiday says, not this year for me. End of the year is Northway. Northway. Do you mean you're heading up north, or you're going to Norway, the country? That'd be really cool. I've never been there either. I hear it's beautiful, though. One of the things I'd love to do before I die is to see the Northern Lights, which I believe you can see pretty consistently from Norway. Although I've never actually experienced them myself. Yeah, so here's one thing I'll mention. We don't see it on panel, but Shizune is doing an autopsy here on the previous animal path, and this is the one that Jiraiya recovered from the Rain Village, trapped it inside his frog dimension. So it's worth acknowledging that at some point, it might not be for a few streams because it's something that got brought up in the debate with Weeaboo Warrior as opposed to in this particular video, but we're going to talk about Shizune more later, and we're going to talk about the fact that she was able to figure out how these chakra rods work and perceive that they're actively receiving chakra. So I think she gets downplayed a lot because she's not particularly strong in combat, but her mental acuity, her intelligence, her perception, and chakra sensitivity feats are definitely something that are worth acknowledging. Hey, Mr. Narrative! Hey, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Been a little while since we since we synced up. I've been traipsing around in the snow over here. How's everything going on your end? We're just starting to talk about the about Konohamaru and his fight with the Naraka Path, as well as talking about Naruto's Rasengan and his taking down some of the individual paths as well. So we're kind of just ramping up on that discussion at the moment. Yeah, hope everything's been going well for you on your end. I'm doing pretty good, thank you for asking. I've been trying to slowly update the stream. So I got a couple of new images, a little bit of a new text overlay. I still have a lot of work to do to kind of pretty it up a little bit, but it's been fun, kind of learning the ins and outs of that. I've been playing a little bit of Halo Reach. I never, for some reason, I just never played through the full Halo series, and a friend recommended it, and I'm absolutely loving it. They're really, really solid shooters. Reach in particular has such a kind of dark, gritty tone compared to the more adventurous and like I don't know, exciting, almost like Avengers style tone of being the Master Chief and going in and saving the day. And then Reach, like everything's depressing, everything's falling apart, and getting destroyed, and I love it. And yeah, on the other hand, I played a lot of Astrobot too, so I guess I've been having a bit of an emotional mood swing when it comes to my gaming lately, but it's been fun. Oh, Mr. Narrative says you're doing great. Oh, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, I hope everybody's doing okay. I know there's a lot of chaos, specifically if you're in North America, but in the world in general. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of connect and just chill. I know that I can be kind of nitpicky and critical about stuff that I talk about, but my goal is to be able to just, chill and have a pleasant conversation amidst all of the other shit that's going on. So hopefully we can do that. So yeah, and then this thing over here too, I wish there was more information about this, because it's really cool, this contraption that Inoichi is using to interrogate the Amegakure shinobi. This is something that came up in the conversation or the debate between Swag and Noodles. They were talking about how they hacked into the mind of the Path of Pain, but that's not what's happening. This is the Amegakure shinobi, not the Path of Pain. Shizune was the one who was doing the autopsy on the Path of Pain. But this device, whatever it is really cool. And given that Ino later compares Pain's mind-pulling jutsu or mind-reading jutsu directly to this, it's worth looking at what is going on here at some point, and the efficacy that Inoichi has in terms of being able to harness this ability. Like, the amount of time it takes Inoichi to hack into this fatigued, like probably tortured, passed out guy's mind versus the quickness that Pain is able to hack into Shizune's mind. I think there's some scaling there that just helps reinforce how dramatically stronger Pain is at the mind manipulation or mind hack techniques, whatever you want to call them. And then my edgy scaling would be that since Ino manages to use a mind transfer technique on Obito during the war, as long as you agree that Inoichi, her father, is somewhat relative to her, then somewhere in there, in that tangled mess, is some scaling that says that Pain should be able to mind hack Kakuzu. But we can get into that more later. We kind of have to go through the whole scaling chain. But it's fun to think about, and I love whatever the hell this thing is. Oh shit, Mr. Narrative says it was my birthday last Tuesday. Happy birthday, Mr. Narrative. Congratulations. Did you do anything fun? Get any cool gifts? Did you get to do anything fun to celebrate? I hope it was a good day for you. See, I'm starting to get to the age where my friends have to remind me that it's my birthday. I'm like, I just want a quiet day. I just want to chill. But last year, a couple of friends kind of forced me is too aggressive of a way to put it, but encouraged me to get out of the house, and we had a nice little small low-key party. Like, not even a party, just a nice little get-together with some pizza, sitting around a campfire. Just, nice, pleasant time. Oh, you had the day off from work. That's cool. That's really good. I hope that your employers were, did they just give you the day off for free, or did they make you take a day of PTO? That would suck, but would also be expected. Having the day off is always nice, though. That's cool. Yeah, honestly, the perfect birthday for me is just like hanging out with my dog, having a pizza. I'm really easy to please. My gift, you know what? My gift, my perfect like birthday gift would be is just like not having to deal with bullshit for a day. Not that I have to deal with a lot of it or anything. I'm not trying to complain. Just like knowing that like this is my day. My day is blocked off. I don't have to worry about things today. I'll worry about them tomorrow. I don't have to worry about work. I don't have to worry about taking care of the house. Everything is just normal and quiet. That can be very pleasant. Again, like not to make myself sound too put upon or anything. Like actually, things have been pretty calm overall for a while, and I'm very grateful for that. And I guess I just like maintaining the status quo in that regard. But yeah, here's more of Inoichi doing the mind scrolling thing. Interesting to note here that Inoichi is plugged into the tortured shinobi's brain with 3 other people scrolling through simultaneously, and it still takes them, I mean, we're not given a specific amount of time, but whereas one of them says, like, it's incredible, you scanned through a day's worth of memories so quickly, and I can barely keep up, something like that. I forget what that statement is, but I mean, it's obviously taking multiple minutes, if not multiple hours, for them to accomplish this, and Pain is able to do the same thing much more quickly, so just another feat for Pain. Oh, here we go. Master Inoichi, you really are amazing, scanning half a day's memories in less than 30 seconds. I can barely keep up. So, I know, it could just be a matter of minutes. I actually don't think it's a matter of hours, because it looks like they start off the interrogation right around the time Pain starts, or interrogation, like mind scanning, right around the time that Pain starts invading the village. And so saying that it's multiple hours probably doesn't match up with how long it takes Pain to do his assault, right? Doesn't quite match up. Making our way over to Konohamaru. But yeah, happy birthday, congratulations. Making it another time around the sun is always something to celebrate, to be proud of, I think. Okay. So, continuing through here. Now, I wish I had pointed out, Kakuzu in Holiday says, if I recall correctly, that brain was sealed / protected, that's why it took so long. Yeah, I think there's a statement saying that, like, Inoichi needs to be careful because there might be traps or genjutsu, like mental blockers or genjutsu traps in the way, and we actually see him, like, very carefully sifting through them. But then once he gets to the brain, he then starts scanning the memories. Like, when he gets past those blockers is when the scanning starts, and then it still takes him like a few minutes to scan for the things he needs, while assisted by those 3 other people. Yeah, here's the one that Shizune was doing the autopsy on. Okay, so here we go with Konohamaru. So this is something that came up in the debate between Swag Kage and Noodles on Itachi versus Pain. There was a little bit of confusion about what exactly Konohamaru accomplished in this fight. Maybe this is common knowledge by now, but I feel like I still hear people saying that Konohamaru killed one of the Paths of Pain, and I want to just go over this very quickly, and kind of just review what happened. If you guys already know what I'm talking about, then I can kind of keep this short. But here we've got the Naraka Path, and for those who need a quick refresher, this is the path that can summon the King of Hell and can use it to resurrect damaged paths. He can also paralyze or immobilize people by holding them by the throats, and once that has begun, he can interrogate them, and the King of Hell will extract their tongue and or their soul. We kind of talked last time about whether or not this is actually a tongue, if it's meant to represent the soul, if it's sort of more of a mythological inspired thing where it's like their engorged tongue that's representing whether or not they're telling the truth. But however you interpret that, the King of Hell comes out, grabs onto this, and can just rip it out if they are not telling the truth. Now, the statement was made that when Konohamaru attacks the Naraka Path, he was occupied fighting 2 other people, or holding up 2 other people, rather. That's not exactly the case. He had just dealt with them, and now he's fighting Ebisu. And Konohamaru manages to intercept them while they're currently involved in their little scuffle there. So let's just go ahead. Nice little moment for Ebisu there. Kind of wish they did a little bit more with Ebisu's character. So Konohamaru does manage to hit the Naraka Path with the kunai, and look at how bored and unimpressed he seems. So even though he does manage to hit the Naraka Path, the Naraka Path doesn't really seem to care all that much. Now, this could be potentially interesting. One of the kunai does actually lodge in his flesh. So we were talking a couple of streams ago about like paper bombs and how their damage interfaces with people's durability and stuff like that, and the suggestion that maybe people in this universe are human beings at the end of the day, and so they have human durability at a baseline, which they can then reinforce with additional abilities or stuff like Diamond Morph, or just by gathering chakra in different parts of their bodies. And we know that Pain is pretty strong, and the Naraka Path specifically is also pretty strong, but look, he gets a kunai lodged in his hand, so it is possible to pierce like even active Paths of Pain's flesh with piercing weapons, and that to me seems entirely on par with what we've kind of come to understand about the paths, or about just durability in Naruto in general. 1 second, I gotta fix something. Me. Oh, I see. OBS was giving me a false positive because I installed Streamlabs, and it's been a little sketchy. Anyway, so to come back to the conversation here, you could potentially look at this and say, okay, it's possible to pierce these characters' skin with knives, but then also, or like piercing weapons like kunai. But then also, if we look at the Naraka Path after that, is he actually bleeding? Does he actually have any discernible like long-term damage that was done to him? That's another consideration, right? We can sometimes find pretty significant details about these characters, about these fights, even by looking in tiny little, apparently insignificant parts of the fight. So, look, it seems like that's weird, actually. I was gonna say that the kunai are still stuck in him, but shouldn't they be on his other arm? Because he had his, yeah, that arm up, didn't he? The perspective is a little weird. I just wanted to double check that real quick. Yeah, that's his, oh no, it is his other arm. So he has his right arm extended up, and then it kind of goes across and hits him. Okay, that makes sense. Perspective's a little confusing, but then, yeah, so he does still have multiple knives stuck in him, which means that he can be cut and pierced. So it's not like whenever Danzo tries to stab Sasuke's Susanoo with his kunai and the kunai just shatters and breaks apart. That's not what's happening here, right? So base human fleshy durability, even on characters like Pain, or on the Paths of Pain, can still be pretty low, or like pretty realistic or grounded, I guess would be a better way to put it. Just, I keep getting caught off guard by the silly faces. I love that, like, despite all these horrific things happening, Kishimoto still finds a way to put in like little moments of levity like that. I adore these parts of the story. Okay. So, I wish I had taken note of where Fukasaku says that Senjutsu enhances your jutsu. I can come back to this later. This is a pretty impressive thing. Like, Tsunade gets pissed and just deletes the core of this massive pillar here. Let's keep going. Go back to Konohamaru. So, yep. Oh, so here we have the Predapath in the autopsy room collecting the chakra rods. Interesting to note that he's left some people alive, at least one person alive. So he's not just slaughtering everybody he sees the moment he sees them. And you could potentially use that to argue that Pain is holding back somewhat when he's first assaulting the village, which I think makes sense given that he's trying to collect intel and all that. He's not just murdering everyone he sees immediately in cold blood, right? And then here, this is actually, so in case it doesn't show up on stream, although I think it will, chapter 427 is what we're looking at right now. And this is the animal path that fought Jiraiya. And some people have made the claim or have come to the conclusion that the animal path definitely died to Jiraiya because its lower half was dissolved in acid. Well, here we are looking at it. This is the one that was in that pool of acid inside Jiraiya's toad belly thing. And we can see that its bottom parts are its bottom parts are charred and, you know, covered in like scarring or wounding, whatever you want to call this. But they are still there. It still has legs and feet. So it was not entirely dissolved in the acid. And then going up to its hip, you can see that the burning damage doesn't even necessarily extend all the way up to its hip or torso. So I used to think, excuse me, voice crack there. I used to think that basically he was bisected, like his midsection had just gotten boiled off, essentially. But that doesn't seem to be the case. One second, I want to bring this over here. Is it still up? Yeah. I want to make sure that something's a little odd with the stream. Let me just check something 1 second. I think it's just because I've been installing the new widgets and I'm not quite familiar with them, so I apologize for the interruption here, but it would be good. Okay. Yep. Okay. Oh, good. So getting back to it now. Let's go back to Konohamaru. Nice little moment for Konan here. Pain is about to begin his speech. Okay, so here Konohamaru's fighting against the Naraka Path, and Naraka Path does a kick that Konohamaru is able to evade. And Konohamaru then gets backed up against the wall and he gets grabbed by the Naraka Path. And then Ebisu tries to come in from behind. Of course, he is not successful. Konohamaru gets interrogated, right? The Naraka Path is trying to ask him where Naruto is. And it looks like Konohamaru's soul/tongue is about to get pulled out. And he's threatened. And then we get this little preview that I'm going to skip so I don't get an issue with YouTube. But then it turns out that he was actually a shadow doppelganger, shadow clone the whole time, right? So this version of Konohamaru that's getting attacked here, that's doing this dodge, is not even Konohamaru's full body. So some people might like to look at that and say that this means that's an anti-feat for the Naraka Path because he can't even keep up with Konohamaru's clone, like Konohamaru's dodging him. I wouldn't necessarily put a whole lot of stock in that because obviously the Naraka Path is trying to, like, not trying to one-shot him or anything because he's trying to get intel from him. Is he a little bit faster than he expected? Yeah, for sure. I think that Pain is probably underestimating him because he's just some loud yapping kid. And he's obviously like adjusting, like, okay, he actually does have some combat ability. I'm going to have to take this a little bit more seriously. But then what happens, right? He immediately backs him up into a wall. And once Konohamaru is distracted, he just immediately, or his clone rather, he immediately gets grabbed. Now, you could say that this is a feat for Konohamaru because all of this is just deception. He was deliberately doing all this to try and lure the Naraka Path in. That's fine. But just keep in mind that Pain is still fighting multiple battles elsewhere in the village. He's still, like, actively giving a speech to Tsunade, which we just saw in the previous chapter. So I would be careful about saying that, like, that Konohamaru can blitz the paths of Pain or whatever the fuck came up in the Spikage debate. No, being able to dodge a kick from a distracted person who's not even regarding you as a serious threat and then immediately getting pinned, I would not call that a speed blitz or anything like that. But then here, I could argue that this is something like a speed blitz in that the Naraka Path perceives him coming in, sees him, he obviously reacts to him, but he doesn't get out of the way in time. Again, I would say I would temper that conclusion by the fact that Pain is distracted fighting 5 other battles elsewhere, but technically speaking, he perceives Konohamaru, he doesn't get out of the way, and he lets himself get hit. So that does actually factually happen. Now here's where the confusion comes in. People look at this and they say, okay, the Naraka Path then slumps forward and stops fighting Konohamaru. So Konohamaru must have killed this path, right? It's defeated, it's dead. And the reason that's not the case is, remember, the Naraka Path is the one that resurrects other paths. So here, this speech happens. Shizune gets mind read over here by the new human path. Or it's the same human path. And then as Pain gets ready to launch his massive Shinra Tensei, he... Oh wait, hang on one second. I wanted to see if we could point out that thing I was saying about Shizune, about the jutsu, just for context. This is chapter 428. Yeah, so here the human path is going to pull Shizune's mind, or her soul, and then read her mind. She seems to be like paralyzed. She's like stunned with Pain's hand on her head. And then Ino says it's the same jutsu as Father's, but he was able to search her mind in seconds without any device. Okay, so this is implying that the device is usually considered to be a core component of the mind reading process, and it usually takes more than seconds. So Ino is being very clear that what Pain can do, again, a version of Pain that is, you know, split up doing multiple things in different places in the village, that Pain can still do this while multitasking much better, much faster, and much more easily than her father can with the devices and everything. So I think that that's worth noting in terms of the overall efficacy of the jutsu. I get a break for water, one sec. Kakuzu says, human path doing a control F in people's mind. Yep. She's in it. Hope she cleared out her browser history. That's something I wondered about I think we talked about it last stream, right? That like it was always weird to me that Minato and Kushina said that they saw everything, or like they saw things that were happening in Naruto's mind by like watching through the chakra that was in him. And so, like, how much did they see? Like, when he had expired milk and then had, like, terrible shits afterwards, were they watching that? Did they have a way of, like, turning off the video feed? Shizune, like, does Pain have to basically sort through, like, all these piles of dirty thoughts and, like, embarrassing moments in order to get to the stuff he actually needs when he's mind reading? I guess he's taking on the guise, the image of like a god of judgment, and all of your sins are kind of laid bare before him. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But yeah, if he were to mind read Jiraiya before pulling out his soul, it would basically be like scanning for like one clean sentence in one of Jiraiya's own dirty novels or something. It'd just be so much smut in there. Oh shit, I got distracted. We're looking for the Naraka Path. 1 second. So, here comes the massive Shinra Tensei. Notice that the animal path summons the other paths to her location. And the paths that we see are the Asura path, who's been defeated, got hit by the Raikiri and the Shinra Tensei. The Preta path, you can see by the little headband on. Looks like Konan is over here. Here, I think it's a human path. It's kind of hard to see. And this would be the Naraka Path. So, is that right? Yeah, well, that's Konan, right? So, Animal, Preta, Asura, the Deva Path is over the village. That's where the last one is. Then Konan, and then Naraka, and human. So, if the Naraka Path was defeated and killed by Konohamaru previously, what is it doing here? What is it doing here standing up while the Asura Path has fallen over, right? That initially makes that claim seem a little suspicious. So now when Pain uses the massive Shinra Tensei, he takes the power away from the other paths. Now the path falls over, and we see that the Naraka Path falls over and gets the automatopoeia, and also gets the little dust plumes, which indicates that he's falling over. Again, the Asura Path, which is broken, quote unquote dead, doesn't, right? It doesn't have dust plumes, it's already down. But he, the Naraka Path, was standing up. And then there's one more thing that's worth pointing out. And that is that just before the Asura Path starts the fight with Naruto, which will happen in just a moment, we see that the Naraka Path is standing up, grabs the Asura Path, takes him to the King of Hell, throws him in, and resurrects him. So, if the Naraka Path was dead, it wouldn't be able to do this and resurrect the Asura Path. So how do we explain what happened with the with Konohamaru and the Naraka Path? Well, he was able to avoid some of his attacks, but the Naraka Path was just one aspect of the 6 paths of pain. Was not trying to kill him, was not bloodlusted. He wasn't trying to kill him before he got intel from him anyway. And the Naraka Path took the Rasengan to the chest, but was able to survive it. You can see he doesn't even have any damage to his clothing whatsoever. So yeah, that Rasengan was enough to wind him, push him back, knock him into the wall, whatever, but not even enough to damage or rip his clothing, which is, in and of itself, that's not a big deal, because the Rasengan, like, the bulk of its damage is delivered as a payload inside the target, as opposed to, as opposed to, you know, just doing superficial external damage. But at the same time, we don't see him report any damage. We don't see him get in the King of Hell's mouth or anything like that, right? He is fine. So all that long-windedness is just to kind of explain that even though it kind of seems like Konohamaru beat him in that one panel, that's not quite what happened. And so to anybody who happens to stumble across this, I hope that helps in clearing up, you know, what actually happened in that particular exchange. Kakuzu and Holiday says the Naraka Path just to been one-hit KO'd, not one-shotted. Yeah, exactly. I think it's reasonable to say that he got, like, the wind knocked out of him, that he was temporarily disabled, something like that. That's fine. But to say that he was destroyed, I mean, if we want to see an example of a path getting one-shot, here we go. Here we go. As a perfect example of a path getting one-shot. Kakuzu says it's a very small Rasengan, so it's okay he survives it. Yeah, exactly. I just don't like the downplay of somebody suggesting that he just no diff tanks the attack or something like that. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, that Konohamaru is the opposite of that. The Konohamaru just one-shots and destroys the path the same way that Sage Naruto is able to. And then the implications coming off of that, like, Konohamaru can blitz the paths of pain, is a little bit silly to me. I'm just noticing that the chat box has a slight line on the screen. I hope that's not too distracting. Yeah, so if you're wondering, that the line that's kind of going up Jiraiya's hair there is from the chat overlay. I'm gonna have to fix that for later. I think I'll keep the chat overlay up for now. Hopefully that's not too distracting, and then I'll fix that next stream. So sorry about that. Let's see. So while we're here, while we're talking about these characters, let's take a moment and acknowledge what happens here with Naruto attacking the Asura Path. He is using a single Rasengan on the Asura Path. And so the temptation is to say that the Asura Path can get one shot by Sage Naruto, right? Or one shot by Naruto. Or even to say that base Rasengans can one shot the Paths of Pain. But he's not in base. He's in Sage mode. And when you're in Sage mode, you put Senjutsu Chakra into your jutsu, which enhances every jutsu you use. So I do want to take a minute actually and go up and look for that specifically. You'll humor me for just a second. I forget what chapter it's in, but it won't take long because it's at the beginning of Naruto's training. And Pa says something that's pretty explicit about the way that Sage mode works, and I just want to make sure that we have that in mind. Okay, unlike Ninjutsu Chakra, where you progressively tire because you're just using up your internal energy. Oh, that's interesting. With Sage Jutsu Chakra, you're continuously taking in nature energy from the outside, and you not only don't get tired, you recover and heal quicker too. So that's, and then this thing, well, with Ninetales Chakra in the mix too, he's showing a truly outlandish recovery rate. That's something that I think is important to note when talking about the scaling between like Naruto and Pain and Kakuzu, is that Sage Mode isn't just like an amp for him. It's not just him getting like stronger striking or anything like that. He's also not just using up his own internal energy source. He's got an entirely separate like battery of energy that's coming in, and he's able to recover from damage faster. He's able to heal faster. Just everything about being in Sage Mode is an overall amp to him as a fighter in so many different ways. And when he goes down into base temporarily, he loses all those advantages. Obviously, he doesn't lose the Ninetales Chakra recovery, but he does get so much in Sage Mode that's not just like raw strength. Kakuzu and Holiday says he also perception blitzed them all IMO since they could have seen him. He perception blitzed them all. Could you please clarify who perception blitzed who? I think I might have lost the plot there. Sorry about that. You mean that Naruto perception blitzed the Asura Path there? Or like, oh, you're saying that like when Naruto explodes the Asura Path, he moves so quickly that the other paths don't see him and react to him. Is that kind of what you're saying? Because like they're all right in front of him. That would make sense. Oh yeah, this is interesting. I want to actually remember this for later, 414, because later we're going to talk about Yukito and her Biju Bomb and how her Biju Bombs compare to other characters. And one of the suggestions that comes up in terms of scaling Kakuzu is the idea that he survived a Biju Bomb, and that comes from the suggestion that Yukito fired a Biju Bomb at him, and that it is comparable to like one of B's Biju Bombs. And even if we don't compare it to one of B's Biju Bombs, the idea being that we can tell for sure that Yukito fired a Biju Bomb because it impacts a mountain, and these things over here get called mountains. And we can see like this indentation in the mountain that seems to be like semicircular or like kind of like a circle, and this is sort of a circular explosion and everything, right? So the idea being that based on this, we can then infer that Yukito did use a Biju Bomb and that Kakuzu was making statements around that fact. So pay attention to the line, to the curvature of this particular rock and the overall size of the rock compared to B, and the size of this rock compared to B as well. This will become relevant. You know what? Fuck it. 1 second. Let's just take a minute and talk about that while we're here, because it's going to come up anyway. Might as well do it while it's like fresh in our minds, right? Is it, why do I never remember the exact chapter? I need to get better at that. Oh no, it's got to be a little bit before this, right? Yes. Oh, okay. So Kakuzu and Holidays, it seems like I did understand what you were getting at there. Yeah, I would probably say that's the case. I guess I could maybe dispute that by saying that they were like, Pain wasn't, how can I say this? So potentially, if I want to be nitpicky, I could say that Pain was not really taking Naruto seriously right out of the gate. He was going for Tsunade, and he was a little distance away, so he basically just sent the Asura Path at Tsunade, and he was like, I don't care, whatever, just kill her, and wasn't really it was sort of doing the same thing that the Naraka Path was doing when it let, quote unquote, let Konohamaru dodge it, and was basically just like, yeah, whatever, I don't take this seriously. And then, oh shit, I just lost one of my paths, maybe now I should actually take this more seriously. I don't know if I would necessarily say that Pain like can't perceive Naruto's movement, because remember the what's his face, the Tendo Deva Path does manage to perceive and react to a Sage Mode kick for Naruto later, and then the Preta Path over here manages to to my perception anyway, like, see, they're all looking at him and they perceive what he's doing, and I think this followed by this indicates that the Predapath is able to like dodge out of the way, but then gets surprised by the impact there. So I think there are other instances in the fight where Pain does show that he can perceive. He said, I thought he dodged him, right? So he expected that the dodge worked, and then it's the frog kumite that winds up getting him. So maybe he just got like a rage amp or something like that, and he moved so fast that Pain was just like didn't track that sight. But even now, like, he's able to track Naruto throwing the Rasen Shuriken. And I know we're not going to start arguing about the Rasen Shuriken being fucking slower than Naruto here, right? So if he can perceive that and get out of the way, then he can perceive Naruto as well. I think he probably just wasn't taking him seriously then, wasn't really paying attention the way that he should have been. Kakuzu and Holiday says, still Pain's fault, it would be a battle IQ problem then. Yeah, I think Pain's biggest weakness, ironically, is just his arrogance. He thinks that he is above everything. He sees himself as a god. He's never lost a fight, and like, that reputation is earned. He's incredibly fucking strong, but also he can be defeated. And if he doesn't, like, in theory, if he doesn't pay attention, that arrogance can get the best of him. I mean, if he had really just retreated until his powers were fully operational and kept the Asura Path in reserve, basically just like use the chameleon and the animal summons to create a diversion, and then just left the battlefield and waited until he was back at full strength, then he could have like done much better in this fight, right? He could have gone, if he just waited until his, what should we call it? The Shinra Tensei and Bancho Tenin were back up. But I guess the best counter argument to that is that just wouldn't have made for a very entertaining fight when you break it down, right? Like, sometimes the narrative, whatchamacallit, the narrative implications, or like the way that the story is constructed, works better if the characters are a little stupid sometimes. Because if every character is working, if Pain was working at peak coldness, peak efficiency, and just like going for the kill, slaughtering everybody, not talking at all, just like a silent, deadly killing robot essentially, then he could have destroyed everyone in the village like with no problems. But that wouldn't have been as interesting as if he like takes the time to exposit to Naruto, talk about his philosophy and stuff like that. That's ultimately what gives Naruto multiple openings to damage him, and to get the best of him. Pain even loses his cool at one point, not because Naruto's like stronger than him, but because Naruto refuses to like admit defeat in face of his philosophy. So, Kakuzu Holiday says, but he couldn't see the air punch anyway, and Rinnegan can perceive chakra, right? Since Kumite is chakra. Yeah, it's weird. That one is really weird to me. Here, he says his Sage Jutsu is starting to wane, and rapidly. He must have used up his Sage Jutsu chakra with that last move. So he's able to perceive that Naruto is using Sage energy and how much he has left, but for some reason he doesn't anticipate the Frog Kumite. I'm wondering if that's because like Naruto can essentially send out like a pulse, like when he in a vaguely similar way to the Shinra Tensei actually, that when he punches the Predapath, he can choose to like send out an additional shockwave of energy with his punch. Pain doesn't know about that. He doesn't know that Naruto uses that frog style technique. So even though he can perceive Naruto's like sage chakra flowing through his body and stuff like that, Naruto like is about to punch the Predapath, and then he like the pulse or the extra range of the Kawazu Kumite like reaches out and hits the Predapath and knocks him away. And that happens so quickly that Pain doesn't know what the hell he's looking at, either can't perceive it or doesn't understand it. Maybe even both, right? Okay, so yeah, so here's what Pa says. Kawazu Kumite utilizes the nature energy all around one. That energy became a part of Naruto and attacked Pain. Goes to show how in Sage mode, both threat perception and attack capacity are enhanced well beyond the ordinary. So it's not just that like his punches did an AoE, or like they have an AoE around them, area of effect. He actually harnessed the nature energy around him to strike and lash out and catch the Predapath off guard. So I think that's why Pain didn't perceive it. It's not like Naruto just like has an extra aura that's invisible like around his hand that means that the surface area of his arm is always larger when he's in Sage mode. It's more like he can just very rapidly, and whenever he chooses, harness the nature energy around him to like add an extra slap to it, if that makes sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Returning briefly to the Yugito versus Killer Bee thing. This is something we'll talk about more later, but I figured we should talk about it at least briefly here because it will come up in the video. This is the main interaction we see between Yugito and Hidan and Kakuzu. I gotta thank you. I think it was Kakuzu and Holidays that pointed out the melting rock thing. You were the one who mentioned this to me previously, right? That the rocks were melting, and then we looked at the color version of it. I never noticed that before. I keep thinking about that when going over this fight now. And there's steam coming off the rock too. It's like melting and like vaporizing, I guess you could say. Interesting. People use the term vaporization a lot to emphasize how strong certain attacks are. Like, oh, the Biju bombs like vaporized a mountain or something. Well, here we actually have an instance of potentially, no, maybe not. It's probably just steam coming off the rocks, but I don't know. I think it's cool. It's the rock is melting, and then that's probably causing like, fuck, never mind. I probably shouldn't start pretending that I actually know much about physics live on stream where I can't edit myself. I'll just say that this is a cool feat. It was me, Dio. Yes, exactly. Have you seen the clip of that girl who was like, she said, I don't know how I would even find this, but there's this I think a female streamer who was saying that like she went to McDonald's one day and she was wearing a t-shirt that had something from JoJo's on it, and some guy came up to her and said, "Excuse me, I just thought you were cute. Can I talk to you for a second?" She said, "Yeah, okay." And then the guy like JoJo posed and like leans back and says like, "Oh, you thought I was going to ask you for your number, but it was me, Tio." And I think, and just like screams that in the middle, and like does the whole like "Ree" thing right in the middle of the restaurant, and I think in the middle of the McDonald's rather, and I think he was trying to impress her. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that must have worked, right? That's how I met your mother. That's how how the two of them got together. And no, that didn't work. That doesn't work. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Maybe you'll get extremely lucky and make a new friend that way, but I wouldn't recommend it. Not that I've ever tried anything like that in my past. Just just saying. Yeah. You got to admire his let's just call it courage. Say he's courageous for doing that. So that's the first part of the fight. So now I think sorry about the coughing. I think I'm coming down with something. Damn it. Oh well. So here is post fight. This is after all that happened. And now we see these are the buildings that they were in previously. All this rubble, earth is torn up and all that. And there are some rocks slash maybe you could call these mountains. I won't get too much into that right now, but you know, big rocky structures. You could see the relative size of the rocky structure here compared to this, I don't know, village, small town. You can see these striations in the rock. I think these were structures or like scaffoldings. You can go back and see earlier. But more to the point, this indentation here, compare that to, oh come on, tell me I saved it. Okay, compare that to this one here. Now you could potentially say that here we have B near these big rock spires. Here's a big rock spire. He's shooting his Biju bomb, and there's a curve in the rock spire. And then here we also have a rock spire, and I also have this curve in the rock spire. Therefore, Yugito did a Biju bomb here. And that could be the case. It is also worth noting, I think, that the pattern here looks to be a lot smoother, but you could argue that that's just because we're seeing it from further away. We're not seeing the amount of detail here. It is kind of interesting to note that there's a little bit of a cliff or like a hanging, I don't know what you call this, like a protrusion that's kind of pointing over. And there is one here too, so there's highly similar. But also that these mountains in the distance were not destroyed, right? So if, what's her name, Yukito did launch a Biju bomb, it caused this erratic kind of sketchy pattern. It was not wide enough to hit these other mountains over here. So it would have been like this big. The cannon blast would have been like that big. And then it didn't go through and hit the mountains in the back. So that could be some scaling, right? That could be something you could look at and say, these are the limitations and the capacities of a Biju bomb from Yukito. You could also say that since B does this and it clearly like creates a much larger explosions that are off in the distance, that we would expect to see damage to these mountains back here as well. And since we didn't see that, maybe this is actually just Yukito using her fireball attack again, because her fireball attack is capable of blowing up these buildings here. So maybe she used that, or some other attack, or maybe it was, you know, one of Kakuzu's attacks, like he used wind enhanced fire or another wind attack, or any number of his like lightning enhanced. What does lightning get enhanced by? Water? Whatever it is, just like adding charge to one of his powerful like AoE ninjutsu to achieve the same effect. So I'm not going to take a firm stance right now. I'm not going to say that I have everything figured out and everybody needs to listen to me, blah blah blah, but I'm going to say that there is a direct parallel between what happens here with B and Yukito, and you could potentially get evidence either for or against her Biju bomb feat by looking at these two chapters back to back. What I would say is that somebody smarter than me should, if they're scaling this, should look at the size of B compared to this mountain and try to get a size estimate for the mountain as well as this one, and then try to say, like, can we also do the same thing for these buildings and these quote-unquote mountains over here, you know, and see how that stacks up. Also keeping in mind that these might be mountains, but the definition of a mountain is something in the real world that is pretty contested. It's like a mountain is basically like a big mound of dirt or rock that is not a hill, and a hill is a big rock, mound of rock and dirt that is not a mountain, right? It's just one of those things where, like, in certain dictionaries, if you look up the definition of man, it's literally like a human being, an adult human who is not a woman, and you look up woman, it's an adult human who is not a man. It's hard to know for sure what actually counts as a mountain. So I would personally say that these are more like, I don't know, stone pillars, because I'm wary of using terms like mountain level, or like throwing in the term mountain, because then people will associate that with mountain level, which means something specific, right? It means an object of a specific size, composition, diameter, whatever. I would rather just look at these objects, not like worried about what to call them so much, and just look at these objects for how big they actually are. But now that I'm looking at this, you can kind of see it looks like this pattern over here. Like there's a very distinct shape to the way that the scoring has taken place. I don't know. If we're supposed to look at this as shadow, then disregard what I'm saying. I'm just like, it's just relevant because this just looks to me like shadow. But maybe you could say, okay, this is like scoring from the Biju bomb or from the fire attack, whatever you believe it is. Scoring meaning like causing like heat-based damage, like burning is what I mean, not like scoring points, right? And then this stuff on the mountain could also be evidence that, like, okay, there's this dust plume over here, so it destroyed, the attack destroyed something down this way, and then maybe it did reach to the far mountains, not far enough to destroy them, but enough to cause like some heat damage, some burning, stuff like that. So I'm kind of rambling as usual, but anyway. Kakuzu and Holiday says, even I think Kakuzu cannot split a mountain in half. Well, okay, well, if the Kakuzu god says so, then I have to lean towards your perspective there, I think. I guess it's a question of defining what a mountain is, though, because I think that maybe he could walk up to this thing and he could punch it and like fracture it, maybe crack it. I'm skeptical of that as I say it, but like if somebody made that argument, or like here, like this thing over here, right? This little like smaller rock over there. I think if he used Diamond Morph and he went up to it and hit it as hard as he could probably fracture that. And he could maybe even do it to like one of these larger spires if he was really trying. By the time we get to this one in the back, I'm more and more skeptical just because we don't see him ever on panel do anything that's that impressive. But, you know, if you thought you had an argument to explain that Kakuzu could shatter this thing, I wouldn't say you were crazy. I would be like, okay, I'm skeptical. Can you please show me that? But I wouldn't say it's like like dumb or anything off the top of my head. But then if you, the problem that like people like Noodles make on occasion is that they will call this thing a mountain and say, well, this is technically a mountain. And then they'll say Kakuzu can break this, therefore he could also split Kilimanjaro in half or split Everest in half. Well, why is that? What's your evidence for that? Well, I've just proven to you that Kakuzu can break a mountain because this is a mountain and Kilimanjaro is a mountain. So since I've proven to you that Kakuzu can break a mountain, then he can break Kilimanjaro because Kilimanjaro is a mountain, right? It's just this misunderstanding of what mountain level means. And like we talked about this before, but like mountain level is a specific tier of strength that refers to a character's ability to destroy an object of a specific size that we decide upon as a community. We're like, okay, the object has to be at least this big, at least this thick, at least this density, etc., etc. And then we say, okay, if they can break something that's that big, then they're mountain level. It's not about whether or not the thing that they break technically, semantically counts as a mountain or not. It's about the actual like numerical size of that thing. So to me, I don't really see the point of calling something like this a mountain, and I would go so far as to say that it's confusing and misleading if you're then going to say that somebody who can break one of these things is mountain level. You'd actually have to demonstrate that this is as big as whatever the standard mountain we're using for that. Excuse me. Why would he diamond morph a mountain anyway? Maybe because there was a big bag of money inside of it. Maybe. We know he's motivated by the currency, right? So maybe somebody was hiding inside of it, like one of his bounties. I don't think he would be that foolish. It's not really his style. But, you know, yeah, if there were some people hiding underground, if there was like an underground village, or if there was something stored inside the mountain, or like an Earth-style jutsu user had built up a bunch of earth and dirt and stuff to cover up a temple or a storehouse or something, I think it might make sense for Kakuzu to try to punch through it that way. Although, if he was being prudent, he could potentially use lightning style false darkness, which would be more precise, and also just has the typing advantage over earth anyway. Although I don't know, do the typing advantages apply to just like raw materials, or is it just ninjutsu? So like, is Kakuzu better at splitting earth with lightning because it's dirt and rock, or is it like lightning chakra is just stronger against earth chakra? I'm not sure if it's a jutsu thing or if it's like a natural element thing, like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, which I've been rewatching, which I really love that show. It's so good. I think I might actually do a video on like the opening episodes of Avatar, because I think they're sort of a masterclass in world building. But anyway, in that show, they're very clearly just using like the natural energy around them and tuning into it. So if you say that like fire is weak to water, that makes sense because it's just a part of the natural environment, and that applies not just to fire bending versus water bending. It applies to you know, the natural elements as well. I think that's how they work in Naruto as well, but it's kind of weird to think of like a mound of dirt as being weak to a Tesla coil. You know what I mean? Kakuzu Holiday says a secret treasure. Yes, yeah. I think if he were out on a treasure hunt or something, that might make sense. I think in a novel he tanked a mountain falling at him, something like that. You know, I I think I just had somebody mention that the other day. Where did I hear that? I think it's in the Evil Flowers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's in Akatsuki Hiden, Evil Flowers in Bloom, and it's after Kakuzu and Hidan assault Shangri-La, I think. The leader of the village tries to bury Kakuzu in mud by turning a nearby mountain into like a giant rock slide of mud. So yeah, he like turns the mountain into mud using an earth style, like a doju, not dojutsu, what is it? A doton jutsu. And then Hidan is away from the area at the time. I think he might be with Hohozuki, and he's just like, whatever. Kakuzu's gotten out of more difficult situations. I'm sure he'll be fine. And just like doesn't care. So it's not technically like the whole rock mass of the mountain falling on his head or anything. It's more like he's getting drowned in the huge mass of mud, if I remember correctly. Still pretty impressive. But see, that makes me wonder, like, if that's an earth jutsu, if he just started firing lightning bolts at it, would it deactivate the earth jutsu and just like nullify the mudslide, something like that? Okay. So, with that all being said, going back to the Naruto fight real quick. Naruto versus Pain. Let's point out that I want to look at when Naruto... So Naruto takes out the human path here, and it's with the Rasen Shuriken, obviously. Now, I think some people, certain people, can be confused about this. It looks like Naruto is tearing apart multiple paths at the same time, and it's kind of weird because we get a snap to a bird's eye view perspective, a top-down perspective. But if you look closely, you can see that here is the Deba path. The Deba path's not affected. Here's this is the Naraka Path, I think. The Naraka Path's not effective. The human path throws the animal path out of the way, and the human path is the only one that gets cut in half. So some people look at this and they're like, oh my god, Naruto like killed like 3 or 4 paths of pain with one Rasen Shuriken. No. He cuts the human path in half. The others get out of the way. Just important to note that. It's still very powerful, and I do think that, like, probably if he had touched any of the other paths with the blades of the Rasen Shuriken, he probably would have cut them in half too. I'm not saying he doesn't have the AP to do it, except for the Predapath who can absorb it, or the Shinra Tensei that can disperse it, sure. But just in terms of, like, the AP of the jutsu versus the skin or whatever of the opponents, yeah, I think he can take them out. That's not a problem. But that's not what happened here. So it's just important to be precise about that. Kakuzu in Holiday says, I don't know how he did, but Junggu is always helpful. Oh yeah, totally. I wonder if he could have just like sent a couple of his hearts scurrying out in different directions and then let his quote unquote main body die like under the mud or whatever. And then once the dust settles, he just like sends in one of his hearts underground, like tunneling under to you know, to come pick him up or something like that. They give him give him the one up. I guess that's the cool thing about Kakuzu in terms of the wide variety of abilities that he has. You could probably speculate about a whole bunch of different ways that he could get out of that situation. It's definitely a terrifying thing to have to deal with, but he has a pretty wide arsenal, especially when he has all of his hearts simultaneously. A lot of ways that he could try to get out of that situation. Pain doing a dunk. Yeah, yeah, it does look like it. It's doing a slam jam over here. Yeah, it's actually kind of silly. And then the animal path goes flying with her legs up in the air. This is kind of interesting that we get a buzz 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 effect there, but no, I guess it makes sense. Well, the Rasen Shuriken is a wind style attack, not a lightning style, so I'm a little surprised at the choice of sound effect, but I guess it's more to kind of reinforce the whirring and the cutting, like a saw blade or something like that. Pain has a sense of humor here. So let's see. I wanted to go to look at the Rasen Rangan as well. So the next path that Naruto takes out, this is kind of creepy, I love that. The next path that Naruto takes out is inside the mouth of Gamabunta, and he uses the Rasengan Barrage. Now, notice that this technique does not say Senjutsu technique. It just says Rasengan Barrage. However, Naruto does have his Sage mode activated. You can see, just barely see that the dark rings around his eyes, and then he just loses Sage mode over here. So that again, like, he does take out the Animal Path in one attack, but it is one attack that uses 2 Rasengan, and those Rasengan are enhanced with Senjutsu Chakra. Kakuzu and Holiday says, seems like all the path doesn't have the same reaction speed since the Animal Path wasn't able to dodge by herself. Yeah, I think that Pain, he's the one perceiving everything happening. So anything that happens through the eyes of the paths, it's a little unclear. Sometimes it seems like the paths are semi-autonomous, almost like Edo Tensei, where Pain can kind of just let them do their own thing. Like when the Naraka Path is fighting Konohamaru, the Naraka Path goes like grrr at him when he dodges one of his kicks. Is Nagato like taking the time to actually say grrr through the Naraka Path's mouth while also talking to Tsunade, or is it more reasonable that he like gives it a little bit of autonomy like he does with the animal summons or something like that? I think that would be a valid interpretation. But at the end of the day, he's controlling them all either directly or like semi-directly with the chakra rod. So I think it's his perception and his reaction speed that's ultimately the biggest deciding factor in these interactions. But I do think that like the abilities of the individual paths vary. Like their bodies are different, the techniques that they can use are different, potentially the amount of chakra that they could handle flowing through their body at any given time could be different. And we see that when they first assault the village, actually I can just go up to it real quick, that the Animal Path actually throws, or sorry, the Animal Path is the one who's going to officially start the fight because she's the one that winds up summoning all the other characters in. But she doesn't jump up in the air, right? It's the Asura Path who actually grabs her and then throws her into the air. And he does this again later. I forget. I think it's right before the massive Shinra Tensei starts. So that to me suggests that the Asura Path's throw distance is superior, or like throw strength is superior to the Animal Path's jumping strength. So there's a discrepancy in the individual powers of each individual path, the strength, the speed, that could all vary. I think that's fine. I think they're basically sort of like puppets that have their own like strengths and weaknesses. And there's a little bit of a mystery in terms of to what extent they can function autonomously. Because like look, here Pain says disperse over here. Does he really need to say that if he's controlling all of them? Is he like role is he like role playing to try to make, like, in case anybody's watching him, to make it seem like he's just talking to multiple people? But then sometimes he talks through the mouths of one of the individual paths. So I don't know. I think it's open for interpretation. I think you have a good point, right? And I think at the end of the day, each of the individual characters does have individual strengths and weaknesses, and that's not just in terms of the abilities that they're assigned, like what paths they can use, but also it's also related to their physical stats, the stats of the shinobi that died and that were made into the paths. I like how some of the members of the Akatsuki have a sense of humor too. It is pretty funny. Okay, so going back to this, I just want to look at the other instance where, oh yeah, so here's the thing where Pain seems surprised at Naruto's foot coming in and manages to grab it. My interpretation of this is that when Naruto goes into Sage mode, he gets like a burst of speed. Pain is surprised at the fact that he's like just got faster. He's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, he shouldn't be able to move that fast, but he still perceives it and reacts to it. He's just not able to like fully withstand the blow. He gets kicked apart, right? So now he uses the Rasen Shuriken. I'm looking for the time he attacks the Naraka Path. Okay, so now he's going after the Naraka Path, and he's got both of the Rasengan in his hands, and he comes in from above in just a minute. He tackles the Preda Path. Pain disperses the Rasen Shuriken, and then he comes down and says Sage Art Rasen Rangan Rasengan Barrage. Okay, so again, he's using 2 Rasengan to take out the Naraka Path, and they're enhanced with Senjutsu Chakra. So that's important, an important distinction to make as well. So after this, the only other Rasengan feat that I think shows up is way at the end of the fight, when Pain gets hit with one of Naruto's Rasengan, and it's a base Rasengan. But of course, when he gets hit by that, it's after all of this shit has happened, and after having fought Six Tails Naruto as well. So if, say, oh cool, there's a nice little panel there of Kakuzu. If, say, somebody were to make the claim that Pain got one shot by a Rasengan, I think we've demonstrated that none of the paths we've seen so far have gotten one shot by base Rasengan. That's for sure. Including the Asura path, who got hit with a Senjutsu Rasengan. And then this Pain over here, while the last thing that ultimately kills him is a Rasengan, it's after he takes, you know, this reciprocal, or like the pushback, almighty push, right? He gets kicked later by Sage Naruto, again, pushed back into the wall after he breaks the chakra rod. He gets hit with the, you know, Biju Bomb, explodes at close range, right in front of him, etc., etc. So saying that he was one shot, maybe not the case. Kakuzu in Holidays says, to me, Pain can react to some degree to Sage Naruto, but not physically. I mean strength and speed wise. Just Tendo to get one shot by a Rasengan though in base. Yeah, exactly. So I think I might disagree somewhat, just because like Pain does clearly have the capability of reading Naruto's incoming kick, like responding to it and blocking it. But he doesn't have the like full physical strength to just stand there and take it. He gets hit back by it, and I think this happens again later, right? Like he's able to respond to something that Sage Naruto does, but Sage Naruto like breaks the chakra rod and kicks him. Let's just look at that really quick. So it's like right over here. So yeah, he says he wants to go talk to the real Pain, and then this happens, right? So Pain comes in, tries to stab Naruto with the chakra rod. Naruto grabs it, snaps the chakra rod, and kicks him in the chest, and like bashes him up against the wall behind him. So obviously, like, granted that like Nagato is super fatigued at this point, and Tendo has taken multiple hits from both Sage Naruto and Sage Naruto and Six Tails Naruto. So he's not at 100%, but still, right? Like he doesn't manage to avoid this. He takes the hit to the chest, or to the girdle, whatever you would call it. And then he has to like push himself up, right? So, yep. That being said, he is still able to disperse the Rasen Shuriken, and then he's able to avoid this flanking attack with Naruto coming in from the sides and surprising him. So he perceives this happening. These are Sage clones, right? Like, oh no, he's no longer in Sage mode. He's used up his Sage chakra. So these are just regular clones. Okay. Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah, that final Rasengan that winds up hurting him is a base Rasengan, but it's after all of that stuff happens. Yeah, this is a base Rasengan. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over the fight real quick and identify the parts at which the individual Pains were defeated. Kakuzu in Holidays says he's fatigued but could do another Chibaku Tensei though. Really, you think he could? I don't know. I don't know about that. I think that's I would love to give Pain the credit for that. I mean, he does do the whatchamacallit, the Art of Rene Rebirth and resurrects everybody in the village, and that obviously takes a lot of chakra. Like up to this point in the series, like all that entire fight, like doing the massive Shinra Tensei, all the other stuff he did, and making the first Chibaku Tensei, he still had his black hair, and it was only after using the Rene Rebirth that he like fully drained his hair, which is a sign of draining his life force, and it turned white. So he still has a massive amount of chakra, but as much as I want to like stand pain all day, I don't know if he'd be able to make an entirely new Chibaku Tensei after everything he went through. If he did, maybe he could do it if it was like his last ditch thing, but if he did, it wouldn't be any bigger than the one he used on Naruto before. It would have to be equal or smaller in size, and he would probably like pass the fuck out, or he would need to drain his chakra the same way and basically like put his life on the line for it. When you say, Kakuzun Holiday says Nagato said it, when you say that was when he was saying I didn't expect the Eight Tails to be so powerful, I should enlarge ... Are you talking about that? Because I agree that his intention was definitely to do it. Yeah. Well, he said to do one bigger. Yeah, I think he could have made a bigger one, especially if he wasn't fatigued. Like if he started off the battle at Konoha and just, I don't know, Naruto was just hanging out eating ramen, and Pain just showed up and threw a Chibaku Tensei right at Naruto's head, and just made it as big as he could. It would have been a lot bigger than this. If he had no other distractions, if he wasn't fatigued or anything like that, he could have made it bigger than this. And then if Naruto broke out, he could have made it even bigger. But after all of that, you know, when he's like fatigued and you see the Chibaku Tensei fall and he's like coughing up blood, I don't know if he could do a second one in a row after all that. He can make it bigger, sure, but I think he does have his limits. But that being said, so I think I've kind of covered the background that I wanted to go over, you know, doing the review or the overview of the background information. I think I'm ready to start like talking about the video, going through and commentating on it. So usually around the 90-minute mark is when I do a little break. I'm going to take a little 5-minute break or so, and then we're going to come back and we'll do the reaction. Kakuzu says he said that after Naruto broke out. Yeah, I think he says that right around here. Let's just go over that real quick. Yeah, so my interpretation, this is something that came up in the debate, right? I'm sure you remember in the Swag versus Noodles debate. He dug himself out of the catastrophic planetary construction, incredible power, I should enlarge, right? So his intention here is that he wants to enlarge the sphere, and I think if he really pushes himself, he probably could, but at this point, he's getting close to running out of stamina, and you know, if you use up all your stamina, you run the risk of dying. In Nagato's case, when he used the Rene Rebirth, that's literally what happened, right? He fully drained his stamina to the point of like changing his hair color and becoming even more emaciated. Was a whole thing. And so I don't agree with like Noodles saying that he's holding it up and then he drops it. I don't think that's what happens. But I do think that Naruto like destabilizes it and breaks the seal, because the Chibaku Tensei is a sealing jutsu at the end of the day. And then so Pain is like, shit, I have to make it bigger and fix the seal to keep him trapped in there. And then he just doesn't have enough ability. He doesn't have enough power to do that. And then he's trying to do that. He's trying to fix it. And then he like gets exhausted and falls over. And that's when the Chibaku Tensei like falls down. So hopefully that made some sense. But okay, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back soon and we'll do the video reaction. Okay, we're back. Situated over here. Oh, cool. We got some more comments from Kakuzu and Holidays. Kakuzu says, the way I interpret this fight is fatigued Pain can fairly keep up with base Naruto and Taijutsu, but he's getting overwhelmed when Sage comes in. Same happened later when he kicks him. I think it's fair to assume that. Yeah, I would agree with that. Sage mode, he's able to react to, perceive, and I guess absorb some of what Sage mode does. But like, if it was just Sage mode versus the Deva Path, and the Deva Path didn't have access to like Shinra Tensei and Banzo chaining, it was just like a Taijutsu clash, and Naruto was bloodlusted and just going after him as quickly and intensely as possible, he could probably like disassemble him, right? Like if you really went after him, just based on what we've seen so far. The only thing I guess I can't prove is that Pain does sustain multiple direct attacks and seems to be hurt by them, but he doesn't have any broken bones. He doesn't have like his chest caved in or any broken bones that he tells us about, right? He's not. We see other examples of like the Asura Path attacking Jiraiya and his arm just gets deleted. We don't see anything of that level happening here with Naruto and Pain. So potentially you could be like, it's dubitable if Naruto has the, or it's in question if Naruto would just like one shot and kill him. I don't think that would be the case. I don't think he would be generating punches which would, like, he would be punching right through Pain's chest and ripping out his heart or something like that. Oh, whoops, I muted the mic. Sorry about that. I was just saying, not that it would be in character for Naruto to do that, but I don't think he would, you know, have punches that would be like ripping off Tendo's limbs or anything like that. But still, yeah, like I think he could probably beat him in a straight up Taijutsu clash with no interference or anything like that. Oh, sorry, I missed a comment that you said. I don't know why he said that after Naruto broke out. I think he was saying that because the basically the Shinra Tensei, or not Shinra Tensei, Chibaku Tensei, a lot of people I think look at it as a as like an attack jutsu, like in the debate between Swag and Noodles the first time, or against Parrot and Swag, he says like, so Kakuzu has something that hits harder than the Chibaku Tensei. That's how that debate started. The Chibaku Tensei doesn't really hit hard in the traditional sense. It just seals you and traps you. And then obviously like you need to, excuse me, you need to hit hard to be able to get out of the Chibaku Tensei. But I mean, like, obviously if this thing falls on your head, it's gonna really fucking hurt. But it's not an AP based jutsu that in the sense that like False Darkness is, right? Like it's just attacking you straight up and you have to deal with it that way. It's more of a sealing trapping jutsu, and its strength comes from the gravity core in the center, but also just from all the mass of rock and earth pressing down on your body and containing you. So I'm actually of the belief that Chibaku Tensei is better used on large targets than it is on individual, like small mobile characters. But I think what happens with Pain in this situation is that Naruto breaks out of it, and when he does, he breaks the seal. So notice he doesn't destroy the whole thing, like most of it is still intact, but now it is no longer forming a big round sealing trap that keeps him inside. Presumably with the nine tails, you know, individual tails thrashing around, some of the rocks starting to fall out of the bottom, it's no longer an effective prison. So he needs to create even more mass of rock and earth to continue to press in on Naruto from all sides to keep him like pinned and stuck in there until he can like get him out, I guess, or get his chakra out. Pain cannot stand in close combat versus Sage Naruto anyway. The only fresh Tendo fight we've seen was versus Kakashi, and it was quite close without Asura. Maybe. I think that Pain was not like totally going all out against Kakashi then. I think he was still waiting to get intel, and I think that once he started using Shinra Tensei, he was able to take out Kakashi pretty easily along with the other people that were there with him. So I think I disagree about that, but I definitely see where you're coming from. Maybe the Asura Path just has more strength physically than Tendo. Not sure about than Tendo per se, but I think he has more than the other paths for sure. He might be on par with Tendo, but I mean, to be fair, I think Tendo's main ability, main strength comes from the Shinra Tensei as opposed to from his striking strength. I don't know that he has any really insanely strong like punching or kicking feats, right? That's not really where his strength comes from. It's more from his jutsu manipulation or like gravity jutsu and stuff like that. Okay. So, that being said, I'm gonna pick up with the video, I think where we left off next time. I might skip around just a little bit to make sure that we're where we were, but I think it was around here anyway. So, Kakuzu Holiday says, I don't agree since Asura had to come up as a backup, had to come as a backup. If somebody calls for backup, it's because they, in a way, need help. That's probably fair. I think. You know what? We're here. Let's just look at it, right? Take a quick look. Okay, so at this point, I'll just say that Kakashi has used multiple. He's tried to use the Raikiri a couple of times, and he's now using the Lightning Beast Tracking Fang, and so far he hasn't done anything to Pain, right? Pain is not being particularly offensive. He hasn't even tried to use his Bancho Teinin yet. He's just kind of standing there and waiting to see what Kakashi does. And yeah, okay, so he does bring in the Asura Path. So he probably regards Kakashi as a significant enough threat that it makes sense to have the Asura Path there in case he needs it. I do think he respects Kakashi's strength and threat level as an opponent. So I don't want to downplay that. But then, let's see what else. So now Kakashi's engaged in combat both with the Asura Path and Tendo. This is something that I think gets overlooked a bit, is that he tries to use his Raikiri on the Asura Path from behind, and because of the shared field of vision, the Asura Path manages to dodge it. So it is kind of interesting that Pain is kind of keeping his distance, maybe because he doesn't want to get hit. He just wants to keep Tendo in reserve. I think his strategy here, though, is to try to... Like, notice also that he's not firing any missile attacks or energy bombs or anything like that at Kakashi. I think that Pain's objective here is to try to whittle Kakashi down to the point where he can grab him and interrogate him. As I say that, though, then this shit happens. And so I don't think that Pain knows that this is a lightning clone. Maybe he does. See in a moment. Also worth noting here that Kakashi says, I have no chance if I fight them alone. I need backup. And he's just fighting two of them. He, as far as I can recall, he doesn't have a comparable statement when talking about Kakuzu. So that could possibly be relevant in the scaling there. So there the Asura Path gets him. Yeah, it is kind of interesting, right? That like Tendo doesn't just bring Kakashi in and skewer him with a chakra rod. He actually uses the Asura Path's ability, or like this mechanism attached to the Asura Path, to do it. And I guess there's two ways you could look at that. One, from the power scaling perspective, you could try and say, okay, well, he specifically can't do that himself. Like, he doesn't have enough AP with his hands and chakra rods to be able to do what the Asura Path does here. And that's fine. Like, I don't have a problem with the idea that the Asura Path just has a really, really effective, powerful, piercing tail. But also, you could, like, from a narrative perspective, from a casual perspective, you could just be like, this is really fucking cool. And, like, why wouldn't he do this if he could get away with it? You know what I mean? So, yeah, he seems surprised by it. I don't think he... anticipated this happening. Anyway, a lightning clone making a Raikiri and the wolf. Strangely, Tendo aims for the kill and not for the interrogation versus Kakashi directly. Yeah, that almost seems to be out of character, right? Because you would expect that he would want to interrogate him. I think he would know that Kakashi was Naruto's mentor. So what exactly was his plan here? Was he planning on, like, torturing him with the spike through his gullet, through his midsection? I don't know if this is intentional or not. It's probably not, but it is interesting that this visually looks quite similar to when Jiraiya put the giant stone swords from Miyaboku through the paths of the through the chests of the path previously. It was at this kind of angle and it was about the same size. I wonder if this is meant to be like a visual reference to that or if it's just a coincidence. But yeah, I think I don't have a problem with that. I think that's probably on point that like Pain regards Kakashi as enough of a threat because I'm sure you remember this part later when he kills Kakashi, that he says, "I'm gonna be safe and I'm not gonna go near you." Right, like when he fires the nail at him. Is it in the previous chapter? So yeah, I think Pain can be a little cautious with the Devapath. Maybe the Devapath doesn't have as much like physical, like raw physical power or whatever. Although here he does kind of go in and for the kill. It looks like he's going to try and kill him with the chakra rod. He's got extended. Yeah, so my interpretation of all this is just Pain is like he's standing back and kind of playing it safe with Kakashi, kind of testing him to see if he could potentially incapacitate him to interrogate him. Then he sees like how many tricks and techniques and how much kind of crazy stuff Kakashi can do, and he's like, you know what? Actually, the longer I play with this guy, the more I run the risk of him figuring out my abilities or like doing something to me and harming me. So I'm not gonna take any chances. I just have to take him out, and I'm gonna worry about getting intel later. Right? I think you might have brought this up before too. It's like he doesn't break these chains either. Oh, hey, Loha. How's it going? Thanks for stopping by. How you doing? How have you been? Loha says, doesn't he nuke the village pretty soon after this? Maybe he's already given up on gathering intel at this point. He does pretty soon after. I think he does it at like chapter 430. This is 423. He does it specifically after he reads the mind of Shizune, and that reveals that Naruto is at Mount Miyaboku. So at this point, he's still in intel gathering phase. But yeah, so here he says, I know you're not a shadow doppelganger, so you're going to have to die, but just to be absolutely safe, I'm not going near him. So I think we could all agree that like if Pain wanted to, he could just do another Shinra Tensei and like blow Kakashi apart. Like he has the AP to do that. I'm exaggerating, I should use more precise language. He could kill Kakashi with a regular Shinra Tensei. He could run up to him, stab him with a chakra rod. Like he has the AP to be able to damage and kill Kakashi at this point. But because he recognizes that Kakashi has a wide variety of jutsu, that he's intelligent, that he might have some other trick up his sleeve, he's not going to rule out the possibility that Kakashi can still do something else. And he's right, like Kakashi does have Kamui. He hasn't revealed it yet. So imagine if Pain like does run up to Kakashi. He's like, "Oh, you're dead to rights. I'm gonna take you out now." And he goes to stab him with the chakra rod, and then Kakashi busts out Kamui and blows his head off, like something like that, right? I think Kamui would be effective on Pain, and then he would at least temporarily lose the Deva Path. That would not be a good idea, especially when he's still going in for the intel gathering. What's kind of funny is that he should know about Kamui based on his experience with Obito. I don't know. Well, he doesn't know Obito's true identity, right? But he should probably know how Kamui works. Although Kakashi's is a little bit different from Obito's. I was going to say that after Kakashi survives, he should have been able to notice that and be like, oh shit, he's got Kamui, and he should have said something about it. But he just decides to, I guess he doesn't regard it as a threat once Kakashi dies, which I guess kind of makes sense. Oh, so here he says he must have used that ocular jutsu to divert that attack too. So I guess he doesn't even necessarily recognize that it's Kamui. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But anyway, there's enough ambiguity there that I think I wouldn't outright say that Pain was like how can I phrase this? I think it's very, very clear that Pain could have taken Kakashi in a one-on-one there, but also there are things that Kakashi could have done to damage or bother pain, and he was being pretty cautious at this point in the fight. So that kind of explains why he brought in the Asura Path for backup. I think it's more just like less that he needed backup and more that he wanted to just be as cautious as possible because that was in character for him at the time. Kakuzu and Holiday says Kakashi could calmly snipe to like many would say. Yeah, I think so. I wonder if Pain would be able to perceive him building up the chakra in his eye, and because like Datara notices it right before Kakashi uses Kamui on him, he's like, wait, what the fuck is going on? Like he perceives it before it happens. Maybe Kakashi's better and faster at using it now. I mean, he does manage to teleport away a nail that's being shot at him, presumably pretty quickly. But I think that's, especially since we have examples of Nagato sensing like the Senjutsu chakra off of Naruto later on, it's entirely possible that he would just notice that the buildup of chakra was happening in Kakashi's eye for Kamui and be like, oh shit, I better get out of the way. A god needed to be cautious. Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like that's something that Obito would say to him, right? Like, if you're such a god, you're so perfect, then why are you, playing it so safe? Kakashi taking 3 Shinra Tensei while Chozo only 1. Yeah. Yep. Granted, I think the one on Chozo was maybe a little bit bigger, but yeah, Kakashi's pretty amazing. Pretty awesome. Okay. So I do, as an ongoing joke for me, is just the idea that, what's his name? Obito would be going into the Kamui dimension to sulk and just hang out and like miss Rin and cry. I shouldn't make fun of him like that, but he goes in the Kamui dimension just to be alone and have some quiet time, and then every once in a while just a random fucking object flies in, like a nail flies in and a missile flies in and like hits him in the head that he's not expecting. Because of all the shit that or like Datara's arm, he's just like sitting there meditating and Datara's arm just like falls on his lap. It's like, what the fuck? Kakashi, what are you doing? Loha says, I've been thinking maybe Kamui takes longer for bigger targets. A nail is tiny enough that it could go unnoticed. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I think there is actually proof of what you're saying. I wish I knew the chapter off the top of my head, but during the war arc, during the fight with Obito, Kakashi tries to teleport away the head of the Ghetto Mazo, the Ghetto statue, and I think he says something along the lines of like, if I have enough chakra, if I focus all my chakra, then maybe I can at least get its head. And then Obito kind of like mocks him for it. He's like, that's not going to work with me, Kakashi, something like that. So I do think that larger objects require more chakra. I don't know the chapter off the top of my head, but we might be able to get something from here. I think we talked about this a couple streams ago. Let's read the databook entry. So this is from, if you're not familiar, this is from Narutoversity, and these are scans of the 4th databook, the 4th databook has not been officially released in an English translation, but you can check out this website, and they have fan translations of scans from the 4th databook. So, the godly eyes that conquer fate's horizon, coercing into another dimension, a dojutsu that transfers objects into the dimension created with the Mangekyo Sharingan. In proportion to the amount of chakra the user holds, the possible transferable mass of the target is increased or decreased. Okay, so there you go. There's your proof right there, of what you were saying being true. So the more chakra that you have, you can, the more larger things you can put into the Kamui dimension. So, good call. Oh, I'm sorry. I might have misunderstood what you were saying. You're also saying that like it can take longer for bigger targets. Well, that makes sense too. I think that's on par with what you're saying too, right? Because if you need to use more chakra to do that, you need to take more time to accumulate the chakra, like to mold it or knead it, whatever term is most appropriate. And then I wonder if there's any proof of like once the process starts, that it takes longer to move the object. Like let's say that you wanted to use Kamui on an apple in your hand, and then let's say you wanted to use Kamui on the Chibaku Tensei and you were standing on top of it, right? The one that encases Six Tails Naruto, right? Obviously, it would take way more chakra to move the Chibaku Tensei, and you would need to take a lot more time to accumulate the chakra and prepare it. But then once you like press the button, so to speak, you like start the process of transferring the object. Doesn't it just kind of happen instantly? Or do you think there's a process of it like going through the wormhole, so to speak, where it takes a while to get like to transfer over? I think that the Kamui Shuriken that Kakashi uses like transfer things immediately, right? A technique that applies Kamui's powers to Shuriken that are one of the weapons held by Kakashi Susanoo. The cut parts are transferred into the other dimension, even if only a part of the rapid fire capable even if only a part of the rapid fire capable Shuriken touches, the effects of Kamui manifest. So, at least for this stuff, the moment that you're touched with something that has Kamui applied to it, the thing is transferred immediately into the dimension. And that's also the case with Obito's body. So when he has it in his passive mode, like any part of his body that gets touched gets immediately transported. But then it takes him a while longer to transport himself, to teleport himself. So, I don't know. I'd be curious if you guys have any further thoughts about it. I do think you're onto something. I think that what you say makes sense and is in line with the data that we have. I also think it could be the case that like once you have the jutsu prepped, it's sort of like, you know, to use a sci-fi example, the energy that you would need to charge up to send a small spacecraft into light speed versus a massive like I don't know, like mothership or something like that. I've just been playing Halo, so like one of the Covenant corvettes, if you're familiar with those, or the Covenant like invasion ships or whatever. Like obviously it takes a much longer time to spool up the faster than light travel drives or the slip space drives, but then once you do it, the actual slip space process is just as fast. It's just a matter of the prep time involved is longer. Loha says Kakashi trying to snipe 10 Tails is in chapter 595. Okay, let's take a look at that. Okay, let's see, 595. Good call. Did they do it again later in the war as well? Okay. In the when Madara shows up as well. Going after the Geto statue, Kamui. Yeah, if I gouge out its head, it shouldn't be able to survive Geto statue or not. Yeah, good call. Naive. Yeah, and then he says, don't tell me. So I think Obito's like reversing it, right? But it would have, it probably, if Obito didn't do that, it probably would have gone, like Kakashi had enough chakra to be able to do it, right? It was that Obito like countered it with his own Kamui, something like that, like pushed it back. Obito has enough time to notice it and then go to it and cancel it out. Big target equals long time. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And now I'm tempted to read through all this. So I gotta stop myself before I get fully immersed in this. I really like what they did with Kamui. I think that, you know, them introducing all of these like considerations with Kamui that come up kind of felt to me like it was calling back to some of the stuff like versus Zabuza in part 1, where yes, you have all this stuff going on with the giant monsters and like massive nuclear bombs going off and stuff like that, but also you have these relatively small scale interactions between characters that are determined by I don't know, like trickery and tactics and quick thinking and perception. It's not just about raw strength, right? It's you're dealing with a very simple, very singular, but also incredibly effective and dangerous jutsu, and then being able to pull stuff like this off. Like, this is such a cool moment, right? Oh, no worries for feeding into the distractions. I like it. I love that we can kind of keep the conversation moving in a fluid way. And that's a good point. Like, I hadn't much thought about the speed of that particular jutsu. So I welcome it. Please let me know if you have any other thoughts or suggestions like that. Really impressed with the that you knew exactly where that was coming from too. I have a big list of some of the scans that I use frequently, but there's still a lot of stuff that I don't know where to find at the drop of a hat like that. So that was really helpful. I appreciate that. So, and this is pretty much how the streams have been going. Like the first couple hours, really just kind of chatting and hanging out and like coming up with topics and investigating things as we see fit. And then once we kind of excuse me, once we've kind of had a discussion about some stuff, we then tend to go to look at the videos or whatever source material we're discussing, and they functions more as a catalyst for the discussion, as opposed to like, hello, we're now doing like an analysis, we all need to focus and be just be quiet and focus on the video or anything like that. Although I apologize, I forget who suggested it. I think it was Mr. Narrative. I'm sorry if I'm misremembering that, but somebody suggested that I go and look at the Swag Kage versus Swag and Six versus Afro and Kabuki debate, and I'm about halfway through and I've taken my time with it, and I think we can have like a fun discussion with that. That might be a fun one to plan for in advance, where it's like, okay, this one we're gonna try to stick through it, not that I would expect everybody to be there for the whole stream necessarily, but like plan in advance, pick a day, and we're just gonna spend like the 4 or 5 hours it takes to get through it. Just get your popcorn, and we're going to focus specifically on reacting to that. That could be kind of fun too, just to kind of like go through the gauntlet together of everything involved in that debate. So I'm definitely open to that in the future, but I also like the casual chatting. But that being said, yeah, let's take a look, and I think we're all caught up. I think we all have our background information identified, so let's see what Mr. Noodles has to say about Naruto's scaling here. I should probably unmute the video. There we go.
He entered Sage Mode, but I'm not for sure how consistent this is, considering Sage Mode Naruto manages to destroy a Path of Pain later in the fight with his frog Kumite.
Yeah, I think we talked about that previously. The confusion, I think, was coming from the fact that sometimes Pain can block his attacks and sometimes Naruto is more effective with his attacks, but it's not really all that confusing because Predapath is explicitly mentioned to be weak to physical attacks, and the Deva Path is just stronger, so it's not really inconsistent. It's just that the individual paths have different abilities and strengths and weaknesses, which we've been talking about.
The Paths of Pain also failed to withstand the Rasen Shuriken multiple times, but that'll become more relevant later in the video.
Okay, so that claim is something that confuses me, because I'm not exactly sure what he means. Like, we went through the fight, we saw that there was only one time that the Rasen Shuriken actually killed a Path of Pain specifically, right? Unless I missed something, and that was when it cut the human path in half. After that, it gets absorbed by the Predapath or pushed back by the Deva Path, or it just misses. So what other path did the Rasen Shuriken not get withstood by? I don't recall that being the case at all. Now, that being said, I want to be fair and say that I do think the Rasen Shuriken could probably cut through any of the paths. I don't have a problem saying that, like, if the Rasen Shuriken like hits, like if the blades hit Tendo in the chest, that it would just cut him in half. That's probably true. But is it true? Is it like actually accurate to say that the Paths of Pain failed to withstand the Rasen Shuriken multiple times? Did I hear that right? He didn't say Rasengan, right? He said Rasen Shuriken.
Failed to withstand the Rasen Shuriken multiple times, but that'll become more relevant later in the video.
Okay, so if it becomes more relevant later, we can just wait till later, but I really don't know what that's supposed to be referring to.
Now, this will bring a close to the pain section of the video, and we will now begin talking about Kakuzu's capabilities.
Well, that's a cool thing.
For starters, Kakuzu's taijutsu is pretty nasty, as we see.
I'm not even listening. One second.
For starters,
wow, that's cool. Why wasn't that in the... Oh, I think Kakuzu God, were you talking about this a little while ago? That like there was this cool fight that was only in the intro and that never made it actually into the show. Yeah, because this is really cool. This interaction here, I love this. Obviously, this would have been from the Team Asuma fight, right? This is something that was just made for the intro and not for the show itself. All right. Anyway, sorry, I go back to commenting. I was just really enjoying the animation, especially the design of the like how shiny and like scary those tendrils of Shikamaru's are. Anyway,
capabilities. For starters, Kakuzu's taijutsu is pretty nasty, as we see that he's capable of damaging Kakashi with both his hands and tendrils.
oh yeah, I forget if I mentioned this last time, but I'm gonna be a little bit of a dick here, just a little bit. This is not a hand. So, do we? Yeah. I think I remember talking about this. So I was like kind of a dick, but I was like, this is not his hand. And then these tendrils are like they crash Kakashi down into the ground, and I think Kakuzu God mentioned that this is the part where you were like, the tendrils pierce his chest, and then he was going to reach out his hand to try and rip his heart out. So technically speaking, to get the like little nerdy guy emoji out, but technically speaking, I don't think we actually see Kakuzu just straight up like punch Kakashi and damage him with his hands in that regard. Yes, he definitely does manage to damage him with his tendrils. He can puncture his flesh with his tendrils, as Kakuzu got pointed out, and he can also use his tendrils to slam him down onto the ground. That's fair to say. We do see him kick Kakashi, and he pushes him back and he breaks him through a tree. But again, like we talked about this previously, like Kakashi's able to push himself back up onto his feet. He doesn't complain of having any like broken ribs. He's not coughing up blood. He doesn't have a big hole in his chest or anything like that. So to the extent that the Kakuzu is able to damage Kakashi in CQC, how much damage is he actually able to do to him? That's my question.
Kakuzu is also capable of...
Oh, Kakuzu in Holiday says, I don't know. I don't think I've said that ever, but it's from an opening. Yeah, sorry, I might be misremembering. I think it came up in a previous stream. But yeah, it's I don't think it's actually... Well, it's not in the manga for sure. But it might be in the anime. I haven't seen enough of these fights in the anime. I will say I did watch the anime fight of the Kakuzu versus Kakashi and Choji and Shikamaru. And that was a lot of fun. I think the Noodles actually mentions it in here. I think it's episode 85 of Shippuden, and it's definitely worth checking out. I love that. The inclusions in that fight are really cool. Like Kakashi does a forward lotus on Kakuzu, except maybe it's Kakuzu's water clone. Then he uses like a substitution to get out of it. And then there's like the masked animals are like fighting around in the background and shooting at Kakashi and hit him a couple of times. There's a lot of cool shit there. Kind of shame that they didn't include it in the manga, but it's okay. Kakuzu in Holiday says he never punched anyone or they would vanish. Even Asuma was thrown away just by a wallet hit. Yeah, when he gets smacked on the head by the briefcase. Yep. Yeah, the fight is so great. The animation has got tier. Yeah, it's really, really good. I'd highly recommend anybody to check it out. Yeah, I mean, especially with Diamond Morph Punch, like I do think he could do serious damage with a punch. It's just like, do we actually see him doing it? I don't know if that's fair to say. Mr. Narrative says, been listening to some Discord debates this past week. Most of them include screaming matches. Oh god, yeah, they get so intense so fast, huh? Who have you been listening to, out of curiosity? Were you the one who sent me, was it, hang on, was it Arrow Flame? Or was it one of Spencer's debates, I think they sent me, like Spencer? The one where he suggested to somebody that he would sell someone's mother into indentured servitude or something like that, and that was one of the calmer things that were mentioned in the debate. Honestly, I would love to know, like, Noodles and I are probably not gonna ever have like a friendly conversation, unfortunately. I mean, I'd be potentially open to it. I don't think he would be. That's totally fine. I'm not really interested in it at this point. But one thing, if we ever did have an honest conversation, like a frank conversation, I would just want to ask him and like D1 and Spencer and anybody else, like, what is going through your head when, and not like in a critical way, like literally what happens to you in your head when you get to that place where you're so angry? Like, are you actually angry underneath? Are you just like putting on a performance because it's like fun, it's entertaining? Like Kabuki, I don't think he actually was genuinely mad. I think he was more just like trying to, hype things up for the theater of it all. But then Six, at the end of that debate, I think he was legitimately like about to throw a chair through a wall. Like he was getting up there. So I don't know. I just can't really relate to that kind of energy. I've never, even in life, even like some shitty things that have happened in my life, I've never been so mad at somebody that I would consider like saying 10% of the shit that they say over like whether or not two Naruto characters could win in a fight against one another. So I just want to know genuinely, like with no judgment, what is it like? Like, how do you feel after a debate like that? Like, how do you then go and do it again? How does that fit into your life emotionally? I just don't understand. Anyway, Mr. Narrative says, yeah, that was me. Yeah, okay, yeah, the Matter versus Minato. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I really like that topic. I really would have liked to have a slightly less spicy version of that debate. But yeah, what are you gonna do? Mr. Narrative says, I think half of it is genuine anger and annoyance, and the other half of it is entertainment. Yeah, that's probably fair. I guess it probably starts out as being like a little animated, a little spicy. And then, I mean, like, that's how it was when I talked to Noodles a while ago, right? Like, there was a little bit of, a little bit of a zest, a little bit of spice when we were first starting to have our conversation. And then at some point, I don't know what I did or what I said, he just seemed really, like, actually fucking angry. And I don't know. I don't know what it is that causes that shift. I don't know what the threshold is that makes people shift. I will say some people have a much lower tolerance than others. D1 is probably the one that I'll go to for entertainment value in that regard, in that, like, I don't know, once he starts dropping like homophobic and ableist slurs, like that's kind of where I draw the line. I can't really get behind that. But on his like slightly tamer ones, he seems to be able to kind of like almost go in and out of rage mode. Like he'll decide, okay, now it's time to lay the smack down, and then he'll just get like super worked up. But then his opponent says, okay, moving on, and he's like, yeah, okay, what's the next point? Let's go. Like he just like immediately switches back into normal mode, and that's pretty funny. Mr. Narrative says, I won't lie, it's people be saying some dumb shit in debates, and they like to cut people off and overall just be disrespectful. Yeah, that's true. Swag, as much as I can enjoy his content, has a very bad habit of just like interrupting all the time. It's very, very frustrating. So it doesn't surprise me that sometimes people get frustrated with just, I don't know, being like low-key cyberbullied by somebody over a comic book. It gets really intense really fast. I can see that. It can be a toxic space, yeah. I mean, I guess people also have just a lot of feelings wrapped up in these characters, and that makes sense. That's kind of how I used to see it, as just passion. Like, we all just really, really love these characters, and we have very strong opinions. And so, you know, when you get into, if you ever like sparred with somebody in boxing, like you've gone and sparred with your friend, you might decide once you get into the ring that you're going to go all out. You're not going to hold it back. You're going to treat the fight as if it were a real, actual fight. And your friend agrees to that. And you can go at each other as hard as possible. And then immediately afterwards, like, hug and be like, that was awesome. Let's do it again, right? There's something to be said, or like mosh pits or like battle raps. This is a deep cut, but I used to watch these rap battles from a league called King of the Dot, out of Toronto in Canada, and there was this one particular battle years ago that took place between these two guys who were like lifelong friends, and they really loved each other, but they were like, they also knew every single bit of dirt, like every shitty thing, every hidden secret, every like embarrassing thing that the other person had done. And so they get up in front of like thousands, like hundreds of people in the arena, and then like thousands or possibly millions, however big the video got online, and they laid out every single dirty, horrible, awful thing about each other. and they were so fucking cruel. And then as soon as it was over, they just hugged and they're like, we're friends, we love each other, right? There was something beautiful about using that space to get out all of this emotion, and doing so in a way that was entertaining but also soul bearing. And you could tell that they were really like very fired up, but it was still grounded. And I would like to believe that that's the same thing that's happening in some of these Naruto things. I'd like to believe that. I don't think that's always the case. The way that I see people talk to each other, there's not that hugging it out afterwards. That's not the mutual respect. It's not the, oh yeah, you know, like I totally said that I said worse things to you than I've ever said to another human before, but also I can't wait to see your next video, right? It's hopefully I'm just missing that because I'm not in the Discord or whatever. Hopefully I'm just ignorant and I just missed that part of it. But there's a limit that I have personally when it starts to get into like the slurs, into the, like personal threats and stuff like that. That's when I have to kind of take a step back, you know. Anyway, Discord and the internet in general unlocked and brings up people's darkest desires. That's true as well. Once you have the anonymity, once you have the avatar that you're communicating through, then you can kind of feel like you can get away with murder. They probably have anger that's bottled up inside, and in Discord debates they use it as an opportunity to let all of their anger out. Yep, that makes sense as well. And especially if you have an audience of people egging you on, you know, you can feel empowered to just kind of let loose on another person. Oh yeah, the guy that was arguing for Madara in that Minato debate was trash. Yeah. Oh, Gin. Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen. Honestly, I don't mind it when people are incompetent or whatever, as much as I do when people are just like nasty and spiteful, because somebody who doesn't know a given topic can always take the time to go and learn more about it. And if you're showing up to a debate and you're putting yourself in a public space where like you're being recorded and potentially thousands of people can just look at you and laugh at you and everything you say, I think that takes a certain amount of courage, or at least a certain amount of like self-centeredness where you're willing to put yourself out there. And I respect that. So even if you say stupid stuff, quote unquote, or even if like you don't understand the manga, you know, to a certain extent, I respect Kabuki for showing up to that debate, because he was with 3 other people that clearly knew the series a lot better than he did, and he still tried to contribute something in his own weird way, despite the toxicity that emerged after that. But people who just like, I don't know, try to gatekeep and say like, if you don't have the opinions that I have, then you're like invalid as a person. That's like really weird to me. Oh, Gin was his name, or Jen? Yeah, I need to go back and like just dip my toe in and listen to it a little bit. I got to react to some of the debates on stream, bro. Yeah, I'd be totally down to do that for sure. I'm interested in basically trying to have let me think. Best way to say this. Kakuzu says, I don't think it would be very intellectual to react to those. Let me think about it for a second. Because on the one hand, I like the idea of reacting to things that you guys find entertaining and compelling, and being able to have a conversation with you about it. So if you think it would be worthwhile, I'd be interested to try it. I think anything that gets to the point, like if we get to a level, to a point in anything we're reacting to, whatever it is, and people are literally just screaming at each other, and the majority of the debates, like they're not making arguments anymore, even if they get into a gridlock where they're just talking about semantics, there needs to be something, I think, for us to latch onto to actually have a conversation about, right? Like if guy 1 says you're stupid, and the guy says no fuck you, and the other guy says no fuck you even more, there's not really much we can do with that. But if guy 1 is like, hey, I think Kakuzu can beat Pain, fuckface, and the other guy says, no, dipshit, Pain would beat Kakuzu, then at least we can potentially extract like some of the arguments. There just has to be something there. Like, for example, Noodles recently did his most recent video, I think, was the thing where he says he's going undercover to debate, and he goes into a server with a voice changer and he talks to V1 Batman V1 about Choji versus Gamabunta. The Choji versus Gamabunta arguments are very, very silly, but they're also very, very funny, And so I would be down to react to that and to talk about that. Then at the end of that video, when he turns his changer off and just screams, like literally screams at Batman, like I'm not gonna listen to that. Like, hearing it the first time was bad enough, right? So I just don't know what we as a group could possibly benefit from in listening to that and giving that more attention, right? I don't see the point of that. Can't really say that I support treating other people like that. For the arguments about Choji, sure. Like, talk about Choji and Gamabunta, I'd be happy to. Kakuzu and Holiday says, I don't think it'd be very... Oh, yeah, I read that. Mr. Narrative says, of course I ain't going to ask you to react to debates that have no substance. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So, yeah. For sure. I understand. And I think, basically, I'm going to encourage you to recommend anything that you think I would like, or that you would like to talk about with the group. If I say no or decide not to, hopefully you seem like the kind of person who would already understand. But just to be clear, it's never me saying like, oh, I think your idea is stupid or your suggestion is bad or anything like that. If I decide not to, it's just going to be because I don't vibe with the like the way that the people are talking to each other. But that being said, please like make suggestions. More than happy to check things out. I'm oftentimes like going for walks with my dog or like doing chores around the house or whatever, and I need like background noise, and so I'll put on debates, and there just aren't that many out there that I found. And you'd actually be doing me a favor if you send me more to listen to. So, thank you. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Beating Choji horribly with his taijutsu. He was even able to momentarily stop Yukito's paw.
Okay, wait a second. I want to go back.
Changing Kakashi with both his hands and tendrils. Kakuzu is also capable of beating Choji horribly with his taijutsu. He was even...
Okay, so on the one hand, I don't have it up now. Maybe this is mean. If you think it's crappy, then maybe I won't do it. But I thought about putting up a counter that says how many times he brings up the Yukito paw swipe thing, because I think it's literally like 15 times in the video. And granted, it's worth bringing up, right? It's part of the scaling, it's part of the fight, but it just keeps coming up so many times. Anyway, I guess I won't be petty. I guess I'll leave that aside for now. But this is important to keep in mind for later. This thing that happens between Choji and Kakuzu, this exchange here.
Even able to momentarily stop, capable of beating Choji horribly with his taijutsu. He was even able to momentarily stop.
What Noodles said is that he's capable of beating Choji horribly in taijutsu. So here's the thing. First of all, this exchange doesn't happen in the manga, right? The interactions that happen between Kakuzu and Choji are much more limited, and there is not this extended exchange of taijutsu blows in the manga. That's only in the anime. Now, you can only watch the anime and never read the manga and still have a 100% valid understanding of Naruto as a character, Naruto as a series, and you are still allowed to talk to people about Naruto. I'm not trying to gatekeep and say you have to read the manga or the manga is the only correct source of information or anything like that. However, when you are talking to people about a hypothetical matchup between characters, and the point of that conversation is let's take a specific version of a character and match it up against another specific version of a character. Here's an example of Choji like interacting with the animal masks, but he doesn't manage to hit them. Right? When you are doing that sort of thing, you have to be clear about which versions of the characters you're using, because whether or not you're using the manga or the anime makes a huge difference. For example, like we just talked about, Kakuzu we see using water style in the anime. We don't see him doing that in the manga. Kakuzu we also see using like a substitution in the anime. We don't see him doing that in the manga. And Pain in particular, during the anime fight against Naruto, I wish I could bring it up, but it's like copyright issues make it difficult to kind of go through. Maybe we can see on YouTube. Pain versus Six Tails Naruto is insane. in the manga. Like, even just looking here, right? Like this, I don't know why my connection's so bad, sorry, but like this never happens. Right, this doesn't happen. Yes, he breaks the gem or whatever, but he doesn't have this thing of like pushing Pain back all the way like this. Like, this doesn't happen. Pain doesn't get stuck in the wall. There's all this crazy shit that happens with like Naruto shooting off multiple lasers. The formation of the Chibaku Tensei is different. The fight is just way longer, and Tendo endures much more. Naruto doesn't do that in the manga. This never happens in the manga, right? So like, okay, fair enough. You want to use feats from the anime, that's fine. But if you're going to do an honest, and remember the title of this video is brutal honesty, right? If you're going to do a brutally honest assessment of these two characters, you don't get to just use anime feats for one of your characters and then completely ignore anime feats for another character. This becomes relevant somewhere around this mark. We'll get to that in another day. But there's another statement where he says like, if you want to try to argue that Kakashi is relative to Kakuzu and Taijutsu, that's only in the anime. So what we have here is a bit of a double standard. It's okay to use anime feats if it supports my position, but it's not okay to use them if they don't support my position. And I'm also not going to be clear about when I'm using the manga version or when I'm using the anime version of a character, which just confuses things. And I'm also going to ignore anime feats when they don't serve my purposes. That's essentially what's happening here. And again, it's totally fine to talk about the anime. Please do. Just, you need to be clear when you're doing that, because otherwise, and especially if you yourself are going to gatekeep and tell other people that they can't use anime scaling or whatever, then that changes the conversation, right? It's not brutally honest because it's not honest at all. Mr. Narrative says, would you listen to a Dragon Ball debate? Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know as much about Dragon Ball as Naruto, but I did go through I've been through the whole series up through the end of Dragon Ball Z. I've read some of Dragon Ball GT, and I love the characters. Obviously, it's iconic, it's legendary. So anything up to Dragon Ball Z, I think I can talk about. I haven't gotten too far into Super. I was really liking Super at first, but then there was this shit. I don't even remember the specifics. I think it was like in volume like 5 or 6. It was pretty early on, or chapter 5 or 6. There was something about like, we need 8 Saiyans or however many Saiyans in order to do this ritual to have Goku become a god, and it turns out that Bulma or Chi-Chi is pregnant, and so technically we do have them. It just felt like super convenient, and then Goku gets like this new form just out of nowhere. And you compare that to how hard he trains to get to Super Saiyan 3 and shit like that, and Gohan's transformation to Super Saiyan 2. I don't know, it felt like they were really rushing things, and I really lost interest after that. I will say I thought Beerus was a really cool character. He felt terrifying but charismatic at the same time, which is, great that's what you want out of any villain in Dragon Ball, especially with Frieza and Cell. I think that was the case as well. I guess Beerus isn't evil per se, but you know what I mean. So I don't know much about what happens after that. If I was going to have to comment on it from an intelligent perspective, I need to catch up. But sure, like, I'd be totally down to check it out. And if I feel like I don't know what they're talking about, it just gives me more stuff to read. Kakuzu says, Kakuzu in the anime is arguably vastly stronger than the manga in close combat. Yeah, he does have better feats, right, in terms of his, like even here, you can kind of see in the background of this.
Capable of beating Choji horribly with his taijutsu. He was even able to momentarily stop Yukito's paw.
I love his fighting style too. It almost looks like I know I talk about Avatar a lot, but it almost looks like earthbending in Avatar. It's so precise, and he's just like
taijutsu. He was even
1, 2, 3, right? It's so like there's such a precise and solid rhythm to it, and the way that he kind of like flexes as he 1, 2, 3, like he's kind of like flexing with every shot. It's really good. I really like that a lot. Anyway, Mr. Narrative says, I have a Kid Buu versus Buhan debate you could listen to. Oh, yeah, I might have seen that on my recommended thing. Yeah, please do send that to me. That's stuff that I could, catch up on in a couple of weeks for sure. Listening to, or like, I could reread those chapters pretty regular, or pretty readily. Kakuzu and Holiday says, better even though we haven't seen Kakuzu in close combat in the manga. Yeah, we just see him doing more stuff in the anime. I wish there was more stuff included in the manga. I don't think it's a failure or anything that we didn't see more, because we get to see the primary aspect of his threat coming from his masks. But at the same time, it is cool to see him do his taijutsu, and that form too, that stance that he was using is so cool, right? Like, why didn't we get to see that in the anime? Mr. Narrative says, you're talking about Super Saiyan Goff? Or you mean Super Saiyan God? The thing about that transformation is that it required 6 pure-hearted Saiyans. The only reason they were able to get 6 pure-hearted Saiyans was because Boo brought them together. Okay. Yeah, maybe I was being unfair. Like, I honestly, I kind of got very irritated by that. Maybe I didn't give it a fair chance. So, I don't know. I hear people say good things about Super. I'd be willing to give it another shot. That one... That moment in particular just felt like, I don't know. I want to see characters work really hard to achieve those massive power cliffs, But again, might have not given it a fair shot. Kakuzu Holiday says, well, when he used Water Clone, Kakashi used the Lotus technique that opened the first gate. Yep. And the Water Clone is 10% of the chakra of the user, meaning Kakashi in close combat had to open first gate to defeat 10%. That's a good point, yeah. That's a pretty impressive feat. I love that Lotus moment too, and the substitution that Kakuzu uses to get out of it. It's a really badass moment. Kakuzu's chakra, even though he sealed 2 Biju for a week. Sealed 2 Biju for a week. Trying to remember. Could you clarify the sealing 2 Biju? Oh, you mean that Kakuzu? Right, he was sitting there like helping to absorb the chakra out of the out of the captured Jinchuriki, right, with the rest of the Akatsuki members. I think I know what you mean. Super Saiyan God. Yep. Okay. You sent you the debate on Discord. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. I will check it out. I'm gonna listen to it tomorrow. And then if I need to go through the process of re-educating myself, I'll do so as well. He said that 2 in the 3 tails right before this fight. That's right. He was like sitting there for 6 days, right? Yeah, that's another thing. Like, he sat there apparently for 6 days with nothing to do other than siphon the chakra out. And you have to wonder, yeah, oh yeah, we talked about this, right? Because I was like, does like Kakuzu eat? Because he just sat there. Is Zetsu bringing them snacks or something? And then I think you were like, you pointed out that he has a favorite food listed in the data books, which means that he does eat, but maybe he doesn't have to. Something like that. Okay. Oh, so the one thing I do want to mention, though, and I think Kakuzu God, you're probably going to have some contention with this, so I apologize in advance, but...
Jutsu. He was even able to momentarily stop Yukito's paw. He also whacks Asuma over the head with a briefcase. Asuma in the first stab.
The thing about this Choji feat,
the book was said
actually just ignore the Asuma stuff for now and try to... Oh, okay. Of course he zooms in. But you can kind of see that in the background, Choji gets smacked into the tree. He gets like hit multiple times by Kakuzu, and I think the scene continues even further for a couple of seconds, and he gets like further struck multiple times by Kakuzu. Now, I understand that the temptation to say that this is a feat for Kakuzu because he beats up on Choji. You could, however, turn the argument around and say that it's actually kind of an anti-feat for Kakuzu, because Kakuzu hits Choji over and over and over and over again and pushes him, like, Nando, and pushes him back and strikes him, and he hits a tree, and then he hits him again and again, and then in the next scene, Choji gets up and keeps on fighting, right? Because this all happens before Kakuzu's masks all split up, or like before this happens, before Shikamaru splits up. If I remember correctly, this anime scene is when Shikamaru is still around, and so it happens like around like before this. So Choji is fine here, right? Like, he might have gotten some internal bruising or some ribs cracked or something like that. But what you're telling me is that Choji gets hit over and over and over again by Kakuzu and is still fully combat capable afterwards, as opposed to, like, again, to bring up the example of the Asura Path blasting off of like taking out one of Jiraiya's arms in a single attack. You can of course say that Kakuzu was holding back. He wasn't using Diamond Morph, right? He wasn't going for the kill. He wasn't bloodlusted. He was just playing around with Choji. That is true. That's fine. I am not gonna argue that Kakuzu is incapable of killing Choji. Of course he's stronger than Choji. Of course, especially if he's using Diamond Morph, he could like probably punch a hole through Choji's chest. Obviously, I'm not prepared to prove that mathematically, but just I think it's perfectly fine if you believe that. I would probably agree with you intuitively. My issue with this, though, is that what is being presented here is a sequence of events where Kakuzu is beating the shit out of Choji, and then Choji just gets up and he keeps fighting and he's fine. That would not be what I would choose to represent Kakuzu's strength. And especially since it's anime only, if you're trying to pick and choose things from an anime versus the manga to really make the strongest case possible, I would just leave that out. I don't think that this really makes Kakuzu look all that good. If he were doing that while also fighting Kakashi and like two other people, or like Shikamaru coming from one side, Kakashi coming with a Raikiri, and then what's his name, Choji coming with a big empowered extending slap or whatever, what's the name for it, the partial expansion jutsu, right? And he was dealing with all of that shit simultaneously. Okay, that's one thing, but he just slaps Choji around and then he gets back up. That's not great necessarily. Okay. Kakuzu and Holiday says, and I can argue the Akimichi clan is famous for their anatomy. Choji is like stunned from the first hit and destroyed him later on. Maybe, but you know, Kakashi also gets kicked back and kicked through that tree, and as you pointed out, he kind of struggles to get back up, but then he does, and he keeps fighting, and he's okay, right? So I'm not saying that like Choji took 0 damage and it was nothing or anything like that, but I will say that it's not equivalent to like the thing with Jiraiya I keep using as an example. It would have been a much more clear feat for Kakuzu if he visibly grievously wounded Choji or took him out of the fight or incapacitated him or something, right? We just don't see that happening. So I think the best way to look at this is Kakuzu was just playing around with him and was like psychologically tormenting him or something like that, rather than going for the kill. He could have, but he didn't. Kakuzu and Holiday says, maybe he just wanted to test out if it's a good heart potential since he used Diamond before versus him, making sure if he was worth it or not. Yes, I would agree with that. He has that power of analysis thing in the 3rd data book, which makes it clear that he's evaluating people to see whether or not their hearts are worthy. So I would agree with that interpretation. Kakuzu and Holiday says he did incapacitate him though. I don't agree with that, but feel free to push back if you disagree. Could you give me an example of something from the manga or the anime, like where he's incapacitated? Do you mean like when he gets pushed back up against the tree? Just to be clear, when I say incapacitate, what I'm trying to say is like a character is taken out of the fight. Like they're not that they're necessarily dead, or even that they're knocked unconscious, but basically they're incapable of continuing to fight for the rest of the fight. So if Kakashi gets kicked through the tree, he's not incapacitated. He just kind of gets knocked back. But if he had a concussion, or if or when Gamabunta gets blasted back by pain, right? Like he's not fighting anymore after that. He's still conscious, but he can't fucking move. So he's incapacitated. Kakashi is inconvenienced and possibly harmed, but he's not incapacitated. Just to be clear about like how I use those terms. But let me know if you have an example of that. Oh yeah, so not in this definition then. Yeah, okay. So sorry, I need to be more clear about the terms that I use. Just KO for a moment. Yeah. And hey, that's a feat too. But like,
Aw. He
what I
also
would like to
whacks
have
Asuma
seen
over the head with a
is that happening. Like, yes, it's cool that Kakuzu hits Asuma on the head with a
Asuma in the
briefcase,
first data book was
but
said to be near
why did
Kakashi's
we
level
cut
of
away
strength,
from Choji
was
there?
able to
Like,
fight on par
why?
with Hidan.
Look,
Kakuzu
we just get that little brief glimpse of him, and it looks like he's looking up again. I want to see the whole scene. Like, why don't we see all of that for context? Right? It's a little frustrating. Now, what is he actually saying about Asuma?
He also whacks Asuma over the head with a briefcase. Asuma in the first data book was said to be near Kakashi's level in strength and was able to fight on par with Hidan. Kakuzu.
Yeah, that's true. Again, I could make the same argument. Like, I think my dog is upset. Sorry. I could make the same argument here that I did with the
paw. He also whacks
feet.
Asuma over the head with a briefcase.
Like, yes, he whacks Asuma on the head with the briefcase and hurts him, but no, actually, I'm not gonna even contest this. I think that's just, it's fine to mention. He does manage to damage Asuma. That's fine. He doesn't like take his head off or anything, but he does hurt him. I do think it's kind of funny to notice that Hidan's head is also here, and he's just kind of swinging it around with him.
Briefcase. Asuma in the first data book was said to be near Kakashi's level in strength.
Oh, Kakuzu and Holiday says right after that he wanted to kill him since he's unworthy.
Was able to fight on par
that
with
makes
Hidan.
sense. Do you remember in the anime, did he get like was he about to kill Choji and then did Shikamaru or somebody come in from the side and save his life or something like that? He found Choji's neck. That's a perception feat for sure, if he can find Choji's neck.
Kakuzu also busts a massive gate down with a diamond armor enhanced punch. It's also stated in the third data book on page 196 that
I think he mentioned this later, but
the diamond armor enhanced punch. It's also stated in the third data book on page 196 that Kakuzu, along with the other members.
Okay, yeah, he doesn't mention it until later, I guess, but he does eventually bring up that fire temple gate thing is not just a strong, like, reinforced steel or iron gate. Actually looks kind of bigger in the anime. But anyway, it's not just a metal gate with a, whatever locking mechanism it has. It's also got this sealing jutsu. So these aren't just kanji indicating the entrance of the fire temple. It actually does have a seal on it. And that's something that's never explained in the manga specifically, but it is elaborated on in the third data book. So just important to notice this because it's a feat for Kakuzu's. It's not just like a regular door that Kakuzu's knocking down. He's also breaking through the ceiling jutsu. So this is one of Kakuzu's most impressive feats, honestly. He's getting through a magical, quote-unquote magical barrier and a physical barrier at the same time.
It's also stated
Kakuzu Holiday says the sealed iron gate. Yeah, it's a sealed iron gate. It's sealed physically and then also with the chakra seal is what I'm trying to say.
In the third data book on page 196 that Kakuzu, along with the other members of the Akatsuki, are stronger than Biju. Further down the
Okay, I want to read this carefully. Hardened, skillful masters, even stronger than Age and Shuriki. The Akatsuki organization is made up of rogue shinobi from various lands, but they are not run-of-the-mill rogue shinobi. They are wanted for heinous crimes, including a daimyo killing, bomb terrorism, and the slaughter of a clan. They always operate in two-man cells. Okay? And each member has a quota of one-tailed beast to capture. It is their leader's belief that when two team members team up, even a tailed beast or Jinchuriki will have no chance against them. So, he has recruited members with unique specialties, such as human puppetry and clay bombs. The insignia ring each member wears is proof that they are part of the Akatsuki. When a newcomer is accepted by the old-timers and given a ring, then he can truly call himself an Akatsuki. At one time, Orochimaru belonged to the Akatsuki and wore a ring with Sky engraved on it. Okay, so there's a little bit of confusion here. Kakuzu and Holiday says, yes, it's strong. Yes, it's how strong offensively Diamond Morph is. Yeah, it is one of his best assets for sure. And it can be terrifying to think about, like, going up against Diamond Morph for sure. So it's the two most important things to note here are the even stronger than Age and Cherokee thing, and then also the always operate in two-man cells and two members team up together. Because something that gets confused here is one way you could potentially interpret this And I disagree with this interpretation, just be very clear. But one way you could interpret this is the data book telling us that each one of the members of the Akatsuki are stronger than each of the Jinchuriki. So if you put any Akatsuki member up against any Jinchuriki, the Akatsuki member will always win because they're just stronger than the Jinchuriki categorically. I don't believe that's the case. All we have to do to demonstrate that is to imagine Hidan going up against Killer Bee. Okay, that's all it takes to kind of break that chain. But you can imagine any number of other different combinations of Jinchuriki and Akatsuki members that could be favorable or less favorable. Also, you might have an instance where, like, I don't know, Sasori can very easily deal with a heavily armored Jinchuriki like Shikaku, if Shikaku's weak to poison. But maybe Datara just would struggle with Shikaku on his own. I'm not talking about like inside Gaara, I mean just like Shikaku full transformation Biju mode. If the sand is like better at absorbing the impacts from the bombs that Datara has. So does that mean that Sasori is stronger than Datara, and Datara is stronger than Sasori? How would they do if they swapped out in their respective matchups against the different Biju and Jinchuriki combos? Right? There's so many different combinations that you could make out of these characters that it's not at all fair to say that just because somebody is a Jinchuriki that they can beat, or an Akatsuki that they can beat any Jinchuriki. And specifically, the emphasis here is on the capability of two-man cells with unique abilities being able to take on Biju and Jinchuriki together, right, as groups. So let's keep that in mind and then go back and listen.
That Kakuzu, along with the other members of the Akatsuki, are stronger than Biju. Further down,
it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they're stronger than Biju.
On the page, we see a statement from Pain that says, when Akatsuki members are formed into pairs, we will lose neither to a Biju nor Jinchuriki.
It is their leader's belief that when two members team up, even a tailed beast or Jinchuriki will have no chance against them.
It says, when Akatsuki members are formed into pairs, we will lose neither to a Biju nor Jinchuriki.
Okay, so there is a subtle difference in what's being said there. I don't understand why the quote is being misread in this way. Maybe it was paraphrased or maybe it was taken from another source. I'm not sure. But the point here is to emphasize that it's the two of them together when they go up together as a cell, as a two-man unit, as a team. Then, yes, Pain doesn't think that any of those two-man cells will lose against any of the Jinchuriki that they go up against. Keeping in mind that there are definitely individual Jinchuriki members who could probably take out all of the Jinchuriki in one-on-one fights, right? Probably, what's his name? Kisame. Kisame could probably beat every one of the Biju and Jinchuriki combos in one-on-one fights, right? Itachi probably could as well. And Datara, in character, does take out multiple Biju/Jinchuriki. So, it's possible. But again, like, Hidan and Sasori and Konan and Two-Tone Zetsu, can they all, each of them individually, take out Killer Bee? Are we sure about that? I don't think so. Kakuzu and Holiday says, if God says so, it's true. Right. In this case, would God be Pain? Pain's decree is that they cannot lose. I mean, like, we can dispute whether Pain's word should be taken as gospel, for sure. But I do think it's also important to read all the words and to read them carefully.
This means that Kakuzu and Hidan have to have some capabilities that make them strong enough to beat Jinchuriki.
Yes, together as a team. Well, what that statement specifically means is that they together as a team have to have enough strength and durability and all that to be able to survive and prosper in a fight against Jinchuriki. They might also individually be able to take down certain Jinchuriki on their own. Just to be clear, that the statement itself is not guaranteeing that the two of them individually can take on every single Jinchuriki.
Which is proven true as Kakuzu managed to beat Yugito, who is a perfect Jinchuriki.
Okay, so we're not going to get into the perfect Jinchuriki thing again. we can go over it next time, if you guys want to. But I think you've heard me talk about it pretty extensively. For anybody who just stumbled across this or is just tuning in, the long story short is that I don't believe that Yukito is a perfect Jinchuriki. That's a fan term, and I don't think it applies to her. More importantly, though, being a perfect Jinchuriki or not, we still have to evaluate each Jinchuriki based on their own strengths. Being a perfect Jinchuriki doesn't put you automatically into some superior tier that just makes you the strongest or whatever. So it's not like B and Yukito automatically get to be the best Jinchuriki because they're quote-unquote perfect. You still need to scale them to the other Biju and Jinchuriki when talking about their strengths. So the thing that I object to here, though, is...
Which is proven true as Kakuzu managed to beat Yukito, who is a perfect...
Is the phrasing of Kakuzu managed to beat Yukito. Does that really seem fair to say?
Enough to beat Jinchuriki, which is proven true as Kakuzu managed to beat Yukito, who is a perfect Jinchuriki.
Does it really feel fair to just say that Kakuzu beat Yukito? Doesn't that phrasing seem to imply that, like, Kakuzu himself went up against Yukito and just beat her? When what really happened is that Kakuzu and Hidan went up against Yukito together as a team, and Hidan clearly used his ritual on Yukito. I mean, that thing piercing, like the weapons piercing through her and drawing blood, those aren't, that spike that Hidan is holding in his hand right there, that's not one of Kakuzu's weapons, right? Given that each of the Akatsuki members also has a quota, and if we go back to the beginning of the fight, Kakuzu also seems to be encouraging Hidan to do the work. Where is it? I know there's a line where Kakuzu says, maybe it's over here. Oh yeah, here we go. So Kakuzu literally says, "She's all yours," and then Hidan says, "Me, you're usually the doer." So look, I want to be fair here. Does this mean that Kakuzu didn't participate in the fight at all? This is definitive proof. Hidan just soloed her, went one-on-one. Kakuzu did nothing. No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay, I think that Kakuzu probably did contribute to the fight. But also, he starts off the fight by basically telling Hidan to do the work and Hidan complaining about it. And when we get to the Asuma fight as well, like, Hidan goes in and does most of the work, and then Kakuzu comes in and helps mop up afterwards when Hidan is in over his head. Sorry. And so it's really kind of a disrespectful gesture, like a middle finger to Hidan, to say, Kakuzu did it. Hidan didn't help at all. It was just Kakuzu who won this fight, right? It was Kakuzu versus a perfect Jinchuriki, and Kakuzu beat the perfect Jinchuriki. Fuck you, Hidan. Get fucked. Kakuzu... Kakuzu in Holiday says it's probably because Kakuzu who lift her up that high to shock everyone. After that, Kakuzu says, "Let's do this." Yep, you're right. I think I just skimmed by that right in the next page. So you could look at that. Yeah, let's do it. Okay. You could look at that as him saying, "Oh, actually, I'm gonna join Hidan and we're gonna work at this together." Honestly, I do think that they probably both worked on the fight. I don't think Kakuzu just sat there on the sidelines, especially given the fact that during the Awesome fight, he agreed to do what Hidan wanted at first, but he, if I remember correctly, there were a couple times where he, started to move in. He was, wanting to get involved, and Hidan said, "No, shut up, leave me alone." So I don't think he would have just sat on his ass while all this stuff was happening. But it's not fair to say that it was just Kakuzu versus Yukito. It's just not true, right? We're talking brutal honesty here, and it's not true. Hidan helped too, come on. The argument should be Hidan cannot hit her in base, so Kakuzu did the heavy lifting. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. I think Weeaboo made the argument that Kakuzu probably tangoed with her until Hidan was able to find an opening, come in and draw some blood, and then use the blood for the ritual. I think Weeaboo might have even argued that Kakuzu would use false darkness to help draw the blood for Hidan. Personally, I prefer the idea. So I don't know. Let me know what you think about this, Kakuzu God, because this is like slightly headcanon of me, but I think I might be onto something. Let's see. Is it? I think it's before here. So let's take a look at wind style pressure damage. So when this is the routine that these two, the Hidan and Kakuzu, do together, right? Let's go with the usual. So here Hidan is slashing and dashing and jumping towards Kakashi. Kakashi's in midair, and then during this moment, the wind mask comes up from behind Hidan and then blasts Hidan and Kakashi together. And so part of my headcanon here is I wonder if part of the way this is meant to work is it's meant to blast Hidan forward even faster and give him the opportunity to draw blood, like to get past his opponent and attack from the side to flank him, or just like sort of catapult him forward rather, and increase his speed and his ability to draw blood. Now, if you imagine this taking place during the Yugito fight, we could just have Hidan like spiraling towards Yugito, being ass blasted forward by the wind style mask, and essentially all he has to do is he has to somehow hit and draw blood from this massive cat target. As long as he can do that and get some amount of blood on his scythe, then it doesn't matter if he gets blasted to pieces, if he gets like flame roasted or like slashed apart, kicked back. If he's got the blood, then he's good, right? So I think one way that fight could have gone down is Kakuzu draws Yugito's attention and survives like her taijutsu or whatever with Diamond Morph, splits off one of the masks, and then has Hidan come in from the side with this combo attack and just get some blood, right? That could be one way to do it. Catching up on some comments here. The argument should be that Hidan cannot hit her in base, so Kakuzu did the heavy lifting. Yep. Draw some blood on a blue fire jutsu seems quite hard, though. It's possible, yeah. So that raises an interesting question too. Is like, is the anatomy of the Biju, does it actually have physiology the same way that other characters do? Shit, I just had this saved because I was going to talk about it as well. Maybe one of you guys, oh, it might actually be here. So there's this moment with Killer Bee, right, where Yuki's tails get cut by the shuriken, and he doesn't seem to bleed at all, which kind of makes sense because, I mean, I'm not an expert on like cephalopod anatomy, but I don't think that an octopus tail would necessarily hemorrhage blood the same way that like a human limb would if it were cut off. But I'm gonna try to take a second to find this. If I can't find it immediately, then I might pass. But there's a moment where Killer Bee gets hit in the chest with a Biju bomb, and when this happens, he gets kind of knocked back, and then Gyuki says, shit, I have to retreat for a second and regain my regain my composure. And we see his body is like all cut up and bleeding. Damn it, I scrolled too fast, sorry. And so that implies that the Biju can actually bleed. Now, Maratabi's anatomy is very different. It's like that wispy spectral cat thing. So it's possible that what I said just won't work on her because of that different anatomy. And that's a good point. Anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Kakuzu and Holiday says, the only thing I can think of is she was damaged enough to leave her Biju state, or was exhausted enough to not maintain the Biju state and get cooked. You know, I think I probably have to give that to you. I still want to see if I can find that example with Killer Bee, but even so, his like Yuki's anatomy is much more similar to a real world creature than the spectral cat that Yugito is. So I think you're probably right. I think she would probably like if she were in V2, it would be different. But as long as she's like made out of that sort of wispy spectral appearing chakra, I guess the idea that yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think you're right. Like that shit's probably not bleeding, right? Like Matatabi in base is probably Matatabi in like Biju mode is probably not bleeding in the same way. Kakuzu on Holiday says, just thinking about something, Hidan is saying Yukito invoked her Biju spirit. Do you think it's like the Kurama KCM2 thing Naruto is using, and meaning they faced previous Biju too? Interesting. So this is something that so I'm getting distracted. So Noodles in his video, as I'm sure you know, says multiple times like Kakuzu has fought multiple Biju and Jinchuriki, and I know that in the anime he supposedly fights with Hidan against what's his name, against was it Chome, against the Seven Tails, but we don't see him fight against any other ones in the manga itself, so I'm not sure if we can really use that, depending on like whatever the rules are that we've decided upon for the debate or for the analysis video. But the way that you just phrased that, Hidan saying Yukito invoked her Biju spirit, he specifically says something like, what's with this Jinchuriki, right? And I think I would understand. Yeah, so what this Jinchuriki host, she's completely turned herself over to her Tailbeast spirit. So if you're looking at this and you came to the conclusion that like, okay, Hidan is saying, it's like putting the emphasis on this Jinchuriki host, right? Like, what is her deal? This one in particular has turned herself over to her Tailbeast, and you read that, interpret that as him saying this is uncommon, and that he would then have to have the experience personally of having seen other characters do this sort of thing, other Biju Jinchuriki, then I would actually kind of like that interpretation. And if that's what Noodles was thinking, then I would more understand where he was coming from. To be clear, I think you've put more thought into it than I saw him do in the video. So I'm giving the credit to you here. But I could definitely see ways to I think we could have like a debate about this if you want to. Like, I could potentially say that the statement is a bit vague, and that Hidan and Kakuzu, having been sent out to collect Jinchuriki, probably know a little bit about them as a general rule. Like, when Deidara goes and fights against Gaara, I think he's surprised that Gaara is willing to sacrifice himself for the village. I can't remember what the statement is. There's another statement where one of the Akatsuki members say, like, I thought you Jinchuriki were supposed to be like a sorry, sullen lot all sulking on your own. Like, why are you like this? Why are you so like defending your friend or something? Maybe that was Deidara to Naruto as well. So I think the Akatsuki members in general are given some intel, and part of their intel is like, these guys are going to be loners, these guys aren't going to be loved by their villages, and they're not going to love their villages back, and they're probably not going to be like very good at controlling their Biju for the most part. So, you know, watch out, they can probably transform, they're not going to like you, but at the same time, like, here's your basic Akatsuki starter packet, and it contains like my like the beginner's guide starter pack to dealing with Jinchuriki might contain info like that. So that would be my intuitive understanding. But I could definitely respect you coming to the conclusion that, like, based on what Hidan is saying, that he's basing his statement off of having seen Jinchuriki and Biju in combat previously. I guess one final thing I will say, and this, you could contest this too, I don't know if this is like 100% accurate, but like, when Kakuzu and Hidan leave after the Team Asuma fight, and after they siphon the chakra off of Yukito and whoever the other one was, they decide to go get Naruto, and if they each have a quota of one Jinchuriki apiece, and they've already done one before this, and then this is their second one, then they wouldn't need to go get Naruto. And I think that there would be some kind of comment about that, especially since Kakuzu is so business-minded and mission-oriented, right? He would probably be like, let's go get the bounty instead, because we've already done our mission. Let's go collect money that's more like on mission for us, on target for us. I think, again, this is open to interpretation. The fact that they don't say anything about their quota when going to get Naruto, I always interpreted that as he was the second one that they had ever encountered, and this is their first. And Hidan's reaction to this is just based on the fact that, like, you're not supposed to do this when you're a Jinchuriki. You're supposed to be a sullen, brooding asshole who nobody likes, and you're not supposed to like anybody else. You're supposed to resent having this thing kept inside you and try to keep it trapped and suppressed and basically just, like, not let it out. And Yukito just immediately lets it out. He's like, wait, what the fuck? That's not how you guys are supposed to work. What are you doing? So that's what I think about it. But I actually like your interpretation a lot. And I'm going to go back and, like, try to be fair as I'm going through the video. When I hear him say that, I'm going to say, like, is there a chance that this is what he meant? To try and be more fair. Okay. Catching up a little bit. Yeah, I got the credit. Yep. You deserve it. What about the Biju Spirit thing? I think it's similar to the KCM2 Kurama Chakra thing. Oh, yeah, sorry, I got distracted. So the thing with KCM2 Naruto is that, like, KCM2 seems to be its own very specific kind of thing. I don't think it's, like, you can really compare KCM2 with the other Biju mode transformations. For one, Kurama has, like, these lines that go across him, which is a difference in his anatomy compared to, like, how he usually is. When Kurama appears on his own, he actually looks like a fuzzy fox, right? Like, when he's inside the mental, like, mindscape with Naruto fighting with him there, he looks like a regular fox. But here he's like this glowing chakra aura thing, and he has these lines that came with Naruto's KCM1 mode. And what's more is, I think I skipped over it, like, Naruto is hanging out inside of Kurama's chakra, and Naruto himself is maintaining his own form, right? So you can kind of see it here, like, he's manifesting Kurama's chakra around him, but this is what Kurama actually looks like. And so this is like a unique KCM2 form. If what you're saying is, like, this spiritual or, like, ethereal looking energy is kind of similar to what Yukito looks like when she's in her cat mode in Maratabi transformation, then yeah, I think it is probably somewhat similar. This is like a slightly less tangible version of Kurama that's being that's made out of chakra, that's not as, like, dense, condensed, or physical-ified, for lack of a better word, as, like, Yuki's body is. Because Yuki's body is a, like, tangible, I mean, they're both tangible, they're both physical, but, like, Yuki is manifesting as an octopus, not as a like, glowing outline of an octopus with B inside of him. I just want to mention before I forget and start scrolling away that this is what I was talking about with B getting hit by the Biju bomb, right? It's hit in his chest, and then look, he's like, oh, he's bleeding. He's literally bleeding. And then here, interesting, he's not bleeding from the cuts from the shuriken, but he's bleeding from the outside. I guess you could say that that's supposed to be ink, and maybe it's not blood, but I don't know. I think it's more... It's probably... I guess we could look at the colored... Damn it. Hang on 1 second. I gotta do this. Naruto 611. See if it's ink or blood. Okay. So... Oh no, it's blood. If we can assume that the manga here is the legitimate one, then it's blood. Okay, so he's bleeding. Unless he has magenta ink. No, never mind. I'm not going that far. So Kakuzu Holiday says if that's the case, Hidan can definitely not bleed it. Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna go with I like your interpretation. I'm just gonna go with that. I think that Maratabi is described as being a wraith or a spirit or something like that, and to me, that just sounds like her chakra or his chakra is probably not the same kind of tangible meaty stuff that what's his name, that he's made out of. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's just like an aura, and that he does have like bones and skin and nails underneath it, but it's ambiguous. It's ambiguous, and I don't think it's a guarantee that it would necessarily draw blood. If it's the case, he can definitely not bleed it. Yep. Would you talk to Noodles about? Oh, Mr. Narrative. If you're talking to me, Mr. Narrative, well, so this was over a year ago now. It's a long time ago. But basically, the brief summary is that after the debate between Swagkage and Noodles, I was basically just like a fan of both of them. Like, I enjoyed their work. I really enjoyed the debate. I was looking forward to whatever the next debate was. I think Noodles made a community post, and I think he said something along the lines of, I'm considering doing a debate in the future, or like doing another debate in the future. What would you like me to pick as a topic? Like, what character do you want me to debate? And I left a comment saying, I love your debates. I love your videos. I will be happy to watch whatever you do. One thing, though, I think that there were a couple of things in the debate where, both of you were not quite right about certain things, and then that led to the debate kind of going off the rails a bit. So I don't care what you talk about. I'm there for it. But just make sure to double check a couple of things, because I want to see the debate stay on topic, because I really love it when you guys are like talking, like going back and forth and not go on these tangents. And then he said, like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that at all. And I said, well, you did kind of say that Jiraiya killed 5 paths of pain. And that isn't what happened. Jiraiya did not kill 5 paths of pain. And so he very cordially and very politely, and not angrily or rudely at all, invited me to come into Discord. He definitely didn't call me a bitch and a rat and a bunch of other stuff to try to motivate me to get into Discord with him. At which point we proceeded to talk for, I lost count, I think somewhere between 4 to 6 hours about whether or not Jiraiya killed 5 paths of pain. Technically speaking, it was whether he killed 4 or 5 paths of pain. I'm sorry, I don't want to misrepresent the conversation. And as I think Kakuzu and Holidays probably knows, that conversation unfortunately didn't go very well. Which is a shame, because I learned something from that conversation. I definitely got something out of it. There were definitely, mistakes that I made that I then wound up going and looking into further and like understanding things better. For one, I didn't really know anything about light speed scaling, and you're gonna laugh probably, but when people in the conversation in the chat room started saying that like Gamma Bunta moved at light speed during the pain fight, I didn't have a counter for it, because I had never heard anybody say something like that. And since everybody in the room was agreeing, I was like, okay, I mean, I guess y'all just figured this out, and I'm just gonna go with what everybody's saying, because I guess I'm the one who I'm the odd one out. I'm the one who doesn't know, even though it sounds ridiculous that Gamabunta's hopping around at fucking light speed. And so since then, I have learned about light speed arguments in Naruto. Very, very interesting topic. Glad that I learned that. But yeah, that's basically it. It was a conversation that I thought was going to essentially be like, hey, there's this minor thing. This is kind of funny. We'll laugh about this later. Cool debate. I enjoyed the debate. Let's just talk about this and keep the conversation going. And then, whatever you debate next, like, I'm here for it. And it very quickly became not that, which is unfortunate, really unfortunate. But then, the content that I've seen him make since then, it kind of doesn't surprise me that that's what happened. I think he said in Discord that like he specifically wanted to go on a villain arc, a WWE villain arc. He wanted to be like the bad boy of the Naruto community and all that. So I don't take it personally. I don't think he was mad at me specifically. I think he's just crafting this image of himself as being like, the guy to beat the villain. Like he if you go to his streams and stuff, he starts them off with a little graphic of his logo saying like nobody's ready for this heat, or like I'm ready for war, yes I beat Swag Kage, whatever, right? So I mean, like, it's a whole thing. I just didn't realize what I was getting myself into when I started the conversation. So it is what it is. WWE villain is crazy. Yeah, it's. I will say though, you know, like you gotta have a good villain. Or like a good villain can definitely add some drama and some excitement, whether it's like debating, whether it's WWE or Naruto itself. The only where I draw the line is where it stops being like I'm playing a character for fun, haha, we're gonna get in the ring and duke it out kind of thing, and more like I'm going to, like, I don't know. So some of the stuff that was said and some of the ways in which people were treated, not myself, it's just like the whole thing with Batman and all that. It's just like not okay. It's not the way that normal healthy people act or treat each other. And there's a certain point at which being a villain crosses over into just being like an acerbic asshole, and I can't say that I really appreciate that. That's all. And hey, let me clarify as well. There are ways to be an acerbic asshole and still be funny and still like get along. You know what I mean? Like there is room for acerbic humor. There is room for edginess. There's room for, I don't know, like good-natured aggression, which is what I get out of Kabuki, for example. Like he was described as a necessary evil. I wouldn't even call him evil. Like he's just like a firecracker. He's like a joker, like a wild card. Wild card is the word I'm looking for, right? He was definitely not contributing to that conversation in a healthy way, in a normal, well-adjusted way, so to speak. But on the one hand, like I wind up talking about him more than Afro, even though Afro was like more polite and more reasonable and had some better arguments, because Kabuki's really, really funny. He's just really entertaining. Sometimes having a villain present can be a lot of fun. So I'm not gonna dismiss that out of hand. But like, there's a line. There are limits to what it like counts as being part of the drama of it. And then there's a line over which it crosses into like just genuine toxicity and abuse. And like, no. Just no, I'm not here for that. Anyway. No, it's okay. Kakuzu, honestly, I appreciate that. I appreciate your support. I would honestly prefer that you not bring it up at all. I doubt that he even remembers me, and if he does, I honestly don't really want to have any interaction with him going forward. Because I was not really happy about the way things ended previously. So yeah, I do appreciate the support. It's nice of you, but don't bother. Definitely don't feel like I wouldn't ask you to start any kind of drama or anything like that, because I'll just tell you this, like it's not gonna go anywhere. Like he's not the sort of person who's ever going to my perception, who's going to be like, oh, you know what? That's right. Like my bad. like that's not gonna happen. So it's just going to feed into the villain arc and give him more fuel for the fire. Like I don't know if you followed everything that went down with him and Jay the Great, for example. It was like when I was briefly in the Discord, I tried to be like to both of them, because I was on Jay's streams and I was in Noodles Discord. I was like, hey guys, like, can you you don't have to actually beat the shit out of each other in person over Naruto. Like, can one of you please de-escalate? And it just was not happening. And then I became the bad guy because I was like, granted, I was putting my nose where it didn't belong. It was none of my business, really. If they wanted to have that interaction, it's not up to me to like be their dad and tell them that they can or can't like box each other. Yeah, Kakuzu and Holidays, the boxing thing, right? But it extended beyond that to like some streams where they were just like screaming at each other. But anyway, like it's not my place to come in and say, okay, quiet down, kids. You're not allowed to do X, Y, or Z things. It's not Like, I don't own the community. They don't owe me anything, right? So I'm not trying to be arrogant and say that they have to listen to me. But I did find that, like, it was kind of difficult to have a conversation about any of that stuff without it just immediately being fuel to the fire. Like, when you want to fight, when you want to scrap, and you want to build your identity around, like, being the villain, and you're committed to that, like, say what you will about him, he's committed to that persona, then it's not really about changing your mind or changing your opinion, right? It's either, are you gonna contribute to the narrative, or are you gonna get in my way? And I don't want to do either of those things. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to have any more fights, any more discussions. I like talking about his videos because I think that one thing that he's really good at is pointing out a lot of things, like casting a very wide net. Like, he manages to dig to cast a wide net and bring up a whole bunch of individual things that are provocative and interesting. Now, I disagree with all of them for the most part. There's, like, I think about 5% that I find genuinely compelling and interesting. Every once in a while, he does actually do some interesting scaling or comes up with a unique argument. The best argument that I heard from him, I'm not joking, is when he said that the Raikage gets weaker after he loses an arm because you make chakra out of the cells that are in your body, and since the Raikage no longer has that arm, he would have less chakra, so he would be weaker. Now, I disagree with that, but it's really fucking interesting, right? To actually have a conversation about that, you have to, like, go back and look at, well, how does chakra work? How does it get extracted from the cells? How would the Raikage's mass, like, be compensated for? Would he be a little bit faster even though he had less stamina reserve? So I admire that to a certain extent. Like, I never would have thought of that shit. And it's creative. I never heard it before. So I like listening to his stuff because of his ability to either come up with those arguments himself, or at least to have a community of people that he can gather that then generates those arguments. I like learning about Naruto. I like hearing crazy theories about Naruto. So there's value there. What confuses the fuck out of me is why you would put up videos like this, why you would have debates, have conversations, and then if people, like, try to engage with you in a conversation, if they don't agree with you, just, like, turn hostile so quickly. Like, that's what I don't get. Like, you go through all this effort. Anybody who puts in the effort to get 6,000 fucking subscribers and to make all of the content that he did over the course of, like, 5+ years, like, wouldn't you want that to be part of a discussion? Wouldn't you want that to be part of a back and forth? I don't get the villain arc thing. I don't get the hostility. So my goal with all of this is basically just to look for those, like, nuggets of inspiration, to look for those individual moments of, like, wow, that's a really cool idea about the Raikage. Wow, that's fucking crazy to argue that Choji could beat up Gamabunta, but I love it, right? It's so wild. And, like, how many fucking debates have you sat through with like, oh, it's Itachi versus Sasuke again, or it's, like, I don't know, Minato versus insert character here again, like, and people just get mad and yell at each other and say the same points over and over again. At least this is some fresh stuff, right? So that's kind of why I keep coming back to it. But then what I guess don't appreciate, in addition to the hostility, is then this thing, this part right here, this part I don't agree with this part, and that's why we're talking about it. It's a big old catalyst for discussion. So as you can tell, I obviously have some baggage associated with all of this. I'm not gonna try to ignore that, but I think that I've gotten to a place where I look back on, like, the debates I've listened to and participated in and all that, and just feel, like, kind of grateful, weirdly, despite everything, because it's resulted in me, A, learning a shitload about all this stuff, feeling motivated to go educate myself about the things that I couldn't speak to in debates, and B, getting a chance to like connect and chat with y'all about all this stuff. So, kind of glad that everything went down the way that it did, in a weird way, because it's just been like more motivation to learn about Perfect and Jerky. Okay, so I know I have to catch up on some comments here. Sorry, I felt the need to kind of clear things up and like get stuff off my chest. So I appreciate you being patient with me while I went through all that. Let me catch up a little bit. So Kakuzu can deal with a spiritual creature. Would it go? Yeah, it's just more feats for him. Kakuzu in Holiday says he can destroy Yadamir and Totsuka Blade. I want you to run that by Swag Kage. See what he thinks about that. WWE villain is crazy. Yeah, you need someone that can match the toxicity. Yeah, that's why I said I suggested to Six. He was trying to put together a tournament, and I was like, put Noodles up against D1. I want to hear the two of them go at it because both of them have their unique brand of intensity, and it would basically be like what's the expression, like pouring gasoline on an open flame. And I would genuinely love to see that. Not ironically, I would find that incredibly entertaining. I'm sure it would get very, very toxic, but you know, as long as everybody agreed to shake hands afterwards, then yeah, I would be there for it. Yeah, you said starting a scream. Yeah. Again, please don't like. I might vent from time to time, and I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to do that. But don't feel like the conversation ever has to extend outside of here. Like, please don't go carrying it back to him. I hope for him that he is able to get to a place where he can make stuff that he genuinely enjoys, and that he can connect with people in a way that feels good to him. It's not my right to tell him how to do that, and I don't really feel like trying to convince him of anything or persuade him of anything. The only thing that I really wish he would do is stop harassing people and stop using like homophobic slurs at people when he's talking to like people online about fucking manga. But again, that's not gonna change because I said it. That's not really my business. I just kind of wish it weren't the case. But anyway, yeah, just listen to me whine every once in a while. That'll honestly be very, very helpful to me. I appreciate that. The box thing, Mr. Narrative says, just know we got your back. If you need someone to scream to, I got your back. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Honestly, yeah, it's great to get it off my chest. It's great to connect and talk about it. And the same goes for you, Yona. I hope this stream feels like a chill space. If you have anything you want to share, I am not a drama motivated person. I'm not on a whole lot of Discords anyway. I'm not gonna be like, I don't have a Twitter or an X, I guess is Callum now. So you know, I'm not interested in adding fuel to the fire in anything. If you ever want to vent, if you want to share what's going on, be that in the Naruto community, otherwise, let me know. More than happy to help hear you out. It's the least I can do, right? Kakazun Holiday says, the box thing, yeah. That was, the boxing thing was hilarious to me, how that can happen with just fictional debates. The other great said to Noodles, come meet me. Noodles said, all right, let's go. That's just so part to me. I can't, yeah. So that is, honestly, like, I guess setting up online boxing matches had become something of a meme. Like, wasn't there a couple of tournaments of different YouTubers? Like, I remember, I think Aaron from Game Grumps like fought against Jacksepticeye or somebody like that. Maybe those are the wrong people, but they just had YouTube boxing matches for whatever reason. And I get it, it's entertainment value, right? Like, I think Noodles said in his Discord at one point that he was super disappointed that Jay canceled on him because he had all this content planned that he was going to make around it. And so, like, from a certain perspective, it's just like, I'm talking about it. I'd hate that I even know that any of this was a thing, but because I'm just supposed to, all I want to do is talk about a fucking manga, and now I'm like invested in this interpersonal conflict between two people I'll never meet, and it's unnecessary. But I kept going back to Jay's streams and all that because it's entertainment, right? I have to acknowledge there's a certain entertaining value to it. But when you actually break it down and you actually listen to the conversations, it's not like, they're not, how do you say, hey, buddy, let's shake hands on this and agree that we're gonna go after each other. and then we'll see how it goes. Like, I'm gonna take you down. I'm gonna take you down. Okay, haha. Right? It's not like a rivalry. It's like bitter hatred, and like I'm not gonna just like go after Noodles here. Like the shit that Jay kept bringing up in his streams, was some real personal shit that I don't think has any place. Like, I should not click on a channel that says Naruto debates. Like, come talk about Sasuke. Come talk about Lee and the tuning exams, and click on it, and then it's somebody just like shouting about another person's like personal life, and like making kind of gross claims about that person. So yeah, I don't really like any of that stuff. I don't know why we got that far. It's none of this shit is that intense. To quote the great Hannibal Buress, nothing about this is that intense. So I'm torn sometimes because I want to stay for the entertainment, but I don't want to, like, I get uncomfortable very quickly with how shit escalates. I just can't relate to it, you know? So Mission Narrative says you should see the Death of Noodles video by Aeroflame. Yeah, I might check that out. I have an impression that it's probably going to be pretty spicy. Yeah, but yeah. Aeroflame Myrtle Noodles too. Yeah, I think Batman had something about like ending Noodles' career, and like that. I don't want anybody's career to end. I never wanted that. All I wanted was for people to, you know, I don't know, respond to feedback and continue growing. Because look, if this is purely selfish, right? If I'm a debater, I'm not a debater, but if I were to be a debater, I would want my opponents to keep growing stronger and getting better so that they could keep giving a higher level of challenge to me and keep shooting down my arguments so that I could get stronger arguments and learn more. To me, it's not like the point of debating is not to embarrass somebody on the internet. It's to see how good I am and to have other people help identify my weak spots so I can get even better, and then do the same to them, and then it goes back and forth. So it's competition, but it's also just like photo negative collaboration, if that makes any sense, right? We're egging each other on. There's a positive aspect to it. I really like that. It's not always what happens. Anyway, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, I'm sure. Mr. Narrative says, my dad once told me that in order to fight a tiger, you need a tiger by your side. You need someone who can match Noodles' toxicity and screaming to go against him. Yeah. I definitely see the point of that. It's the whole, like, fight fire with fire thing, right? I guess that's part of the reason why I'm just, like, just add that to the column of why I'm not interested in having another discussion with him, or even with, like, somebody like D1 or Aeroflame or Spencer. Like, there's a part of me that is like champing at the bit to have a debate because I love talking about the shit, and I like the idea of like having my skills and my perceptions tested and all that, right? But I am not like that. I don't have the tiger. And so if it's just gonna be about, you know, who can beat up on the other person, I'm gonna lose. And that's okay. Like, I don't want to win that kind of fight because I don't really want to fight. That makes me a lame or whatever, like, okay, that's fine. I'd rather just talk about the manga, and sit on the sidelines and enjoy the fireworks from the other shows. It's just not really my style, you know. So that's probably why. It's good, I think, to know that about yourself. I think maybe if I decided I really want to get good at debating in this particular way, could I practice it and maybe after a couple of years like get better at it and be able to be more aggressive and use more tactics and stuff like that? It probably. I mean, it's a skill like any other. You could practice it and get better. I don't want to do that though. You know, it's just not something that I'm very talented at to begin with. I'll just be honest. Like, I'm not a very aggressive person, and I don't know why I would spend my time doing that. But I'll watch it though. I'll watch other people do it. Okay. Mr. Narrative says, by the way, I sent you a Noodles and D1 debate in Discord. Perfect, thank you. I will check that out. Oh, the Minato versus Kakuzu. Nice. Is that the one where it's like Minato versus Kakuzu and someone else at the same time? Or was it? I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, I'll check it out. Thank you for sending it. Kakuzu and Holiday says it's very old. Even 6 versus Noodles for Minato versus Kakuzu. Yeah, there's some out there that are like what, probably like 5 years old by now. Kakuzu and Holiday says, I was joking for Yadamir, but more I think about it, more I think it's possible for the Totsuka blade. If Kakuzu can deal with spiritual things and they aren't invincible, he can in a way break it, like the sealed iron gate or the two tails. That's a good point. I will say that I tend to be, I tend to kind of push away from all-encompassing statements. Like the Yadamir says it can repel anything, and the Totsuka blade says it can cut down anything. I tend to not be a fan of things like that, because I think almost always in Naruto especially, you will find exceptions. Like the Sword of Nunoboku, which is that Sword of the Soul that Obito uses. He says it's like impossible to break this because it's a soul sword. You are done now that I have this. And then it gets like immediately shattered, right? How many things are described as being basically like perfect or undodgeable, or, you know, any of those other things that then get eliminated? So if we can demonstrate that Kakuzu in principle is capable of destroying things of a spiritual nature, then I think you might have an argument there. Is this it? Yeah. This sword is a Sage of Six Paths diving blade? Really? Diving blade? Is that right? I can't be. Hang on, I gotta look at the because sometimes the translation in the colored ones is a little different. A divine blade. That makes more sense. Yeah, this is the fucking sword that Hagoromo would pull out every time he went snorkeling. Help him catch fish. This is the sort of, this sword is the Sage of Six Paths divine blade, the Nunoboko. You can no longer win against me. Your strong emotions dwell within the blade. It's the sword of the soul. The sage created this world using this blade, right? And so it gets broken immediately. Just gets fucking broken. Smash. So, yeah, I mean, like, there probably is some way to counter the Totsuka blade in the universe. I don't know offhand what it is. And I think if you think that, like, Kakuzu can deal with spiritual things, it's a spiritual sword, then sure, I like that. It's good. I think it says the Totsuka blade can cut anything. I think it says something like that in the third data book, like it can cut down any attack or something. I'd have to pull it out. Or it can cut down any enemy. Yeah, it has a very hyperbolic, like very kind of exaggerated statement in the... Well, you could contest that. Let me see. Let me see how to phrase it. There's a statement in the third data book to the extent that it's like described in a very grandiose and I think hyperbolic way. And the description of it is basically like... it can cut anything, any foe down, any enemy in its path will be cut down by this sword. And then it will seal them in a genjutsu world of illusion from which there's no escape. It's something like that. The language kind of implies that it's unresistible. I don't like no limits style scaling. Maybe in other universes, like, I don't know, every universe has its own set of rules, but in Naruto, pretty much anything that's ever been described as having infinite power, we then see some kind of limitation for it at some point. Well, I think that I might wrap it up here for tonight. You guys have been very patient with me going on my little rant about my field trip to the Noodles Discord earlier. And I do look forward to continuing to go through the video. And Mr. Narrative, I appreciate you sending me those videos. I will take a listen to them. I think that I'm going to continue doing the Sunday night streams. I know I keep saying this. I do want to do some gaming streams at some point. I don't know if you guys would be interested in that. It's going to be a bit of a different topic. The one thing I think I want to start doing is looking at Elden Ring and talking about the level design. So in addition to my interest in Naruto, I just like going through things slowly and carefully and analyzing them. And Elden Ring, I think, has some, like the first few hours of the game have some amazing like quiet tutorializing and player, like they immerse you in the world in such a smart way. So I think I might do a stream at some point talking about that. You guys are more than welcome to stop by, of course. If it's not your thing, that's also totally fine. If you do see me on stream and I'm doing something else, you can still ask Naruto questions, of course. Like, you can still stop by and just chat and hang out. It's not like a we're only allowed to talk about this today kind of thing. I just want to be transparent about like what my plans are. I want to be able to split my time up between chatting about Naruto and keep that going for a while. Like, we've got several debates to go over. We've got you know, this video, any other videos that you might want me to look at. Plenty to talk about, I'm sure, for months and months to come. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking of at the moment. Mr. Narrative says, I love your rants, bro. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's I appreciate the encouragement, genuinely. Kakuzu and Holiday says, can I ask you something about the work I made? Sure. It's to read the last page I wrote here to here. It's very short. I'd like to have your opinion on it. Oh, sure. Would you like me to do that right now before I sign off? Let me see if I can get Discord up. Yeah, let me see. Oh yeah, here, is this okay that I'm sharing it publicly like this? Yeah, okay, so I brought up the Google Doc. Let me know if it's okay to show. If you can, yes. Okay, sure. Yep. So I'll be happy to do so. I'm gonna assume that it's okay for me to display it publicly. I'll just skip to the end, not spoil anything. Here to here, and you just want me to read this and respond to it? Yep. Happy to do so. Okay, so now that it's done, have you ever realized how it was planned to kill Kakuzu? I'll make you realize for you. Nice. You have arguably the top 5 smartest ninja in the show against him. One planned for a week, one is in the top 3. Yeah, that's true. Shikamaru was like pulling all-nighters planning for this, right? One is in the top 3 best ninja from the Leaf. That would be Kakashi, right? They have the most coordinated team in the Leaf, Team 10. Most coordinated team. This is probably fine. I would be curious to know more about why you think they're the most coordinated team. Are there... So I might have said something like Neji's team might be more coordinated. But I guess like Shigacho has a reputation of working well together as a trio, as opposed to like, I don't know that Neji and fucking Lee are necessarily like working together the same way. They're more just both of them individually strong, right? One counter is almost perfect defense. That's true. One counter has 5 lives of material with the Rasen Shuriken. That's true. Naruto having intel on him, well, Kakuzu don't. Does Naruto have intel on Kakuzu? I don't remember that. But oh, you mean from like Yamato and Kakuzu telling him about him? Or no, Shikamaru must have told him about him too after Asuma died. That makes sense. He didn't start at full chakra since he had to seal 2 Bijus. This is very important. Something that I've forgotten too. The sealing 2 Bijus. Yep, absolutely. He started with 1 life elemental mask down. Do you mean this? I'm not sure about. Could you tell me what you think about this? Do you think he doesn't have 1 mask when he starts the fight with Kakashi and all them? There's backup. Yeah, he does have backup, or the Kakashi's backup. There's around 10 S rank Jutsu used in this battle against him. 2 teams, and they could have lost. Yes, his teammate accidentally destroying one of his lives. Oh, yep, that's a good point. Just take 1 night out for it. It's just insane. Can't you see all the prep you have to do in order to kill Kaiser? You can see all the circumstances that was made just to beat him. Yeah, that's very true. I like the way that you've phrased this together. You're doing a great job of like pulling out all of the individual, like all these individual disparate things and really emphasizing them. So I think that's well phrased. Now imagine someone facing Kakuzu without prep. Back up. How do you do? People in videos says they destroy a mask, but they don't even explain how, because it's like reaching data. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I intuitively, like casually, I think that the masks themselves don't necessarily have great durability. I mean, if they're just porcelain masks, they can probably just be broken with a strong punch. That's what my gut says, right? But okay, could I actually prove that to you? Like, what durability calc do I actually have to give you personally, and specifically about the mask calc? I don't. Even in the debate between let me try that again. Even in the debate between Weeaboo Warrior and Noodles, I don't think they really talked much about the durability of the masks. I think they were just like, they just kind of shook hands and were like, yeah, we kind of agree they are low durability in general. But there's definitely more you could go into there. Kakuzu in Holidays says, Kakashi explaining Kakuzu's powers. Kakashi would sneak lightning blade, destroying watermark. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yep. So that explains this up here. Okay. You don't reach Datara like that. Same for the hearts. Oh, sorry, I skipped something. People in videos say they destroy a mask, but they don't even explain how, because it's like reaching Datara. You don't reach Datara like that. Same for the hearts. Well, it's easier to hit the flying hearts than Datara because of the flight speed, but you get the idea. Yeah, so just my opinion. But outside of the anime, it's not made clear to me that the masks are very fast or very aerodynamic. I know that at least one of them has little wings on its back, so it can probably fly around a bit. But it doesn't feel very well established to me in the manga that they all have the ability to fly around nimbly and dodging things like little spaceships or whatever that are just capable of maneuvering nimbly. I would say you could potentially strengthen your position here by trying to provide some more elaboration on the actual speed of them, but you probably do that earlier. I'm just saying that, like, off the top of my head, I'm not personally impressed by the masks flying around. We don't see them do that much in the manga. Yeah, they can just move or cancel your attack. Yeah, there are ways for them to do so. I would just be curious about, like for example, since it's Kakuzu versus the Akatsuki, I'd be curious about, like, again, you probably talk about this above, but can they cancel Tsukuyomi, right? Can they cancel Amaterasu if they get hit with an Amaterasu? Obviously, they have to get hit, right? But can they cancel the giant shark bomb thing that Kisame does? So there's some additional considerations here, but I like the fact that you're talking about their flying ability. I think that maybe you should, if you haven't already, maybe you already did, you could potentially just talk in more detail about their flight, because it's something that I think a lot of people just aren't aware of, because it's not very well depicted, very clearly depicted in the manga. It's almost impossible. The guy's faster than Kakashi. I don't know about that. I'm not gonna challenge you. Like, if you've already established that in the other parts of the video, I'm not gonna argue with you about that. I personally disagree. I think he can at some points outpace Kakashi. Or let me rephrase. So he is sometimes faster than Kakashi depending on what he's doing at any given time. Kakashi can also be relative to him or outpace him as well. I would not go so far as to say he's just like in a speed category tier higher than Kakashi. I don't think that's entirely accurate. But that's just my take on that. He can see through a 4-plan layer of Shikamaru who planned it for a week. I would probably argue with you a little bit about that. I think you could argue that Kakuzu had the opportunity to basically sit while he was sitting still for a long time. He had the opportunity to think about his fight with Shikamaru previously, having seen like shadow possession and stuff, and he planned for a contingency that allowed him to break through shadow possession, but he didn't anticipate all the other crazy shit that Shikamaru did. He just managed to to counter one of his abilities specifically. So I don't agree with the full plan counter, but I do agree that he countered one of his jutsu. 4 flying nukes, that's a little hyperbolic, but that's okay. Almost perfect defense. Yeah, his defense is exceptional. Multi-directional attack from upside, sides, and underground. Yep. Can fight in close combat, mid-range, and long-range. Yep, that's a good thing to emphasize as well. It's almost a perfect fighter, and that's why I like him so much, and his personality. Yep. Slight nitpick here. I might rephrase this and just say like And not to mention, he's got a killer personality, or I really love his personality too. So when you put that together, he's a perfect fighter and like the perfect shinobi or something like that. The plus his personality at the end feels a little bit awkward, but what you're saying overall makes sense, and I like the fact that you're considering his fighting skill as well as his like narrative side. Kakuzu is excellent at anything besides genjutsu. He just have a natural resistance due to the masks, but that's it. Yeah, I think that's great. That's really, really great. I think you covered a whole lot. You synthesized a lot of information, some of which is stuff that the community doesn't necessarily talk about all the time. You did so succinctly and to the point, and you got a good sense of humor worked in there too. Yeah, this is all great. I really like it. Catching up on some comments here. Kakashi with Sneak Lightning Blade. Oh, you said that, yeah. They fly in the War Arc, so it's okay. Oh, okay, good. Yeah. If they've got, I know I see them hopping around in the hills back there. I don't know if I ever saw them fly specifically, but I'll take your word for it. And if you have that mentioned elsewhere in the video, then that's totally fine. Not Tsukuyomi, not the Shark Bomb Madarasu can be propelled back with wind. Interesting. I like that. I actually really like that. The Madarasu can be propelled back with wind. That's true. Or block and detach with tentacles. Yep, that would work too. In the doc, I just said Kakashi's relative to Kakuzu's ninjutsu, but not himself. Yeah, I think maybe that's something we could talk about on a stream in the future. I think that there's, like, personally, I like the idea that there's more back and forth between the two of them. But yeah, I definitely, like, I'm not, like, like mad about it or anything. I think there's some nuance there, that's all. The 4-player... I'm getting tired, I think. The 4 planned layer is the shadow thing, or I would have said 7 layer. Okay, if you're just referring to him breaking through shadow possession, then sure. Maybe when I'm less tired, you could bring that up to me again, and we could talk about the 4 layers. I think right now I'm starting to fade a little, and so I'm probably not going to be able to give you as good feedback. But if you're just talking about like him countering shadow possession, then sure, I would agree with that. Pain and Kisame was 100 pages each. Wow, that's intense. But that's good. That's really, really good. Because Pain's ability set is super complex, and Kisame is also super strong. And yeah, I think that just means that you're being thorough and you're going deep, and that's kind of what you need to do to really fully honor and represent these characters. So well done. Good. That's really, really good. Okay. Well, with that being said, I think you can hear my voice is starting to crack a little bit, just a tiny bit. I'm starting to get a little fatigued in the throat. So pause. So I am going to sign off for the night. I want to thank you guys again for the interaction and the feedback and the interesting discussion prompts and letting me ramble for a while. We made it an entire minute and a half into the video this week, and you know, maybe we'll even get up to a full 2 minutes next time. I'm actually glad this pace is sustainable. You know, got multiple weeks of content to go for this video alone, so I'm really enjoying it. Thank you again. Hope you guys have a great week. I will see you for sure next Sunday for more Naruto stuff. Have a good night.